Trapped in a barbaric body, he fought for 5 years in a desolate land. His overwhelming strength knows no bounds, shattering magic, facing elite, and redefining power. But what will he discover as he changes the world? His journey has only begun. In the desolate white land, terrifying monsters reign, like a serpent that devours glaciers and a bear that triggers earthquakes with its power. Despite the beasts, an emperor who survived the region warns that the most dangerous thing there isn't the monsters. A warrior leaps onto a scorpion-like creature, ready to crush it with a powerful blow from above. Catal lets out a roar of pain as the monster's pincers grasp him, but his barbaric fury is about to erupt against the creature. Enveloped in a menacing aura, Catal reprimands his companion for eating the forbidden food, questioning how he devoured it in less than a week. To Catal's disbelief, his companions pride themselves on the feat, describing it as a noble challenge they successfully overcame. A flashback reveals the protagonist's past. He quit his job to climb the highest mountain and reach the planet's core. Alone under the moon, he reflects on reaching the southernmost point of the globe, the pinnacle of his solitary and desperate journey. A woman tells the legend of an ancient emperor who marched with his armies to conquer the white desolation, seeking to purify the world. The emperor returned years later, alone and maddened, muttering that the most dangerous thing in those lands wasn't the monsters. Catal emerges in the snow with a smile, saying he didn't expect to find anyone in a place like this. Catal appears in the blizzard with a confident smile, introducing himself and saying he'd also like to be hired by the group. Faced with silence, Catal's expression hardens as he questions if he wasn't clear in his job offer. The barbarian's unexpected proposal catches Lady Bellyaka's attention, who listens intently amidst the snowstorm. Catal stands before the guards, who announce that Lady Bellyaka has agreed to see him, maintaining a defensive stance. The captain of the guards stares intensely at Catal, warning him not to try anything out of line. Worried, the axe guard questions the decision, asking if it's safe to let him meet her. With a confident smile and eyes glowing purple, Catal faces the new environment, exuding an aura of unquestionable power. Catal claims he has no intention of harming him, but the terrified butler accuses him of lying, calling him a scoundrel. Lady Bellyaka enters the room and nervously greets them, while Catal politely replies that the pleasure is all his. Lady Bellyaka stares at Catal and asks what his condition is, wanting to know what he truly desires in return. With a confident smile, Catal reveals that what he desires is all the information Lady Bellyaka possesses. Visibly shaken and left with no other choice, Lady Bellyaka turns and agrees to the condition, stating she understands. Catal observes the world of fantasy and magic she so longed for, glimpsing freedom beyond her icy prison. With overwhelming power, Catal crushes monsters and completes quests, one by one, to finally leave the snowfield. Lady Bellyaka reveals that the kingdom withstands the Empire's advance thanks to the hero and the master swordsman protecting the border. The explanation continues, detailing first and second class ranks, and mentioning that above them exists transcendence, like the swordmaster. Finally, the hero rank is revealed as a legendary existence who transcended mystery to influence the world itself with their power. Lady Bellyaka listens intently as it's stated that having quantified strength is already proof of power, and even a third class is strong. With a surprised and comical expression, she appears shocked and directly asks if the other person knew nothing of it. Lady Bellyaka reveals that due to sabotage, her family is heavily indebted, and this journey is her only chance to avoid ruin. Catal deduces that the high demand for weapons from a kingdom at war is what makes the risky crossing so lucrative. Suddenly, Lady Bellyaka and her guards are paralyzed with shock, reacting with dread to a terrifying sight ahead. Catal explains with a smile that the monster's parts are surprisingly edible, leaving her companions perplexed. Lady Bellyaka is absolutely horrified by Catal's suggestion, barely able to believe what she just heard. Suddenly, a shadowy creature attacks the camp, and Lady Bellyaka screams Catal's name in panic. Confused and frightened by the sudden situation, Lady Bellyaka questions what Catal meant by her earlier words. The guard captain shouts for a shield barrier, and his men respond promptly to defend against the approaching threat. Suddenly, a grotesque purple monster emerges from the snow, roaring fiercely at the guard captain, who stares at it stunned. The guard captain is paralyzed with terror, his eyes wide with shock before the monstrous creature that appeared before him. Catal leaps into the air, preparing a devastating blow with her staff against the shadowy creature emerging from the snow. The creature with glowing eyes reacts with surprise and pain as it's hit squarely by Catal's swift and precise attack. The monster lets out a sharp cry of agony, "Kyau!" as the impact of Catal's blow reverberates through its body. Seeing their attacks are ineffective, the guard captain shouts for everyone to aim for the core hidden within the creature. The blow strikes the target with precision, and the red core shatters into pieces, revealing the monster's weakness. Two men face a monstrous wolf in their path. One shouts for the other to stop, warning of the monster's presence. One of the guards is violently struck by dark energy, his expression contorting in pain and surprise amidst the snow battle. Watching the fight, the guard captain shouts a warning, ordering his men not to drop their guard as they're not even halfway there yet. Tension is visible in the captain's gaze as he carefully observes the situation, sweating with worry over the surrounding dangers. Catal silently observes the situation with a serious, calculating expression, seemingly sensing something others haven't noticed. Beside him, Lady Bellyaka reacts with nervousness and surprise, clearly startled by the sudden tension in the icy environment. Catal looks up and announces they have guests ahead, leaving his interlocutor confused by the enigmatic warning. A reptilian creature with glowing red eyes emerges from the shadows, roaring and ordering the mortals to bark at it. Under the creature's mental attack, Lady Bellyaka screams desperately, clutching her head in unbearable agony. The guard with the axe also cannot resist, groaning in pain as the invisible force violently attacks him. A warrior summons a colossal serpent, declaring himself the serpent barbarian and questioning who dares give him orders. Catal prepares for the fight, stating with conviction that his arrogant opponent needs to learn a lesson. Catal's first strike is so devastating it sends the giant serpent flying backward, shaking the battlefield. The axe-wielding guard charges with a war cry, delivering a powerful blow that kicks up a cloud of snow and dust. Hit by the shockwave, Lady Bellyaka is thrown backward as one of her men screams her name in despair. Catal emerges amidst the blizzard and, seeing Lady Bellyaka, warns that he will finish the cleanup before joining her. Lady Bellyaka is shocked to learn her mother was Lord Akasha's concubine, questioning what it meant to be a second wife. Lowering her head, Lady Bellyaka regrets revealing so much, thinking she shouldn't have exposed the secret of her origin. Lady Bellyaka is shocked by Catal's response, realizing his great ambition and calling him greedy. With wide eyes, she processes the scale of Catal's desire, realizing he isn't joking. Finally free from the snow, Catal marvels at seeing a verdant field for the first time, thinking, it's grass. Lady Bellyaka questions Catal about his previous comment, wanting to know what he meant by calling her intelligent and ambitious. As he walks away, Catal details how her family is on the brink of ruin, suggesting she seeks a path to survival. Catal confronts her, stating her true goal is to seize control of her family, leaving her shaken by his sharp perception. Lady Bellyaka, impressed by Catal's power, calls out to him and begins to make a proposal if he leaves the snowfields. The butler thanks Catal, who, lying in the snow, expresses his wish that they might meet again someday. 5 years later, Catal finally completes his missions. The system informs him he can leave and take his first step into the world he so longed for. With a satisfied smile, Catal turns to the new world, finally free from the snow plains and ready for adventure. He observes the lush landscape, a world of illusions and mystery he dreamed of reaching while trapped in the ice. Catal thinks of the legends of this place, a world of magic, swords, dragons, and elves, unlike anything he's ever known. Catal sees lights shining in the distance in the forest, sensing a place where miracles seem to gather. With a smile, he confirms it's a village and celebrates finally finding a civilized place in this world. Catal rushes towards his destination, promising himself that, no matter what, he will act as a gentleman. Ancien Elfo extends his hand and declares to his people that they have finally found a new home to settle. The elf families arrive in the forest, marveling at the place's beauty and full of hope for a new beginning. Noticing hesitation amidst the joy, Ancien Elfo turns and asks one of his people what's happening. A young elf, apprehensive, asks Ancien Elfo if the place is safe. The leader firmly assures him it is. Despite the apparent peace in the village, concern persists, as the dangerous snow plains are right next to their refuge. Ancien Elfo understands the youth's distress, confirming their worry is about the monsters from the plains being too close. Ancien Elfo expresses his trust in the queen, stating that thanks to her, no monster will be able to reach them. As Catal advances, he feels something tear in the air, wondering if he touched an invisible barrier in the forest. Catal stops abruptly and looks aside with a curious expression, sensing something or someone is nearby. Catal encounters an elf, considering her one of the advantages of this fantasy world. He feels lucky and happy to be alive. Lost in the forest, a small Crianza Elfa cries in fear. She doesn't know where she is and realizes she's strayed too far from home. Suddenly, the Crianza Elfa stops crying upon hearing a noise. She looks up, startled by the sudden presence in the clearing. The small Crianza Elfa faints from fright upon encountering the barbarian, falling backward before he could say a word. Catal, confused, considers taking the fainted child to the village, since she passed out before they could talk. He then imagines being received as a hero by the elves, fantasizing about what it would be like to be welcomed by such a noble race. Suddenly, armed elves surround Catal, shouting for their child and questioning how he managed to break the magical barrier protecting the forest. Ancien Elfo realizes their location has been exposed, concluding that well-prepared humans tracked them and broke their ancient magical barrier. Ignoring the tension, Catal gently places the Crianza Elfa on the ground and tells her to return to her people, leaving her surprised. The elf child runs terrified to her parents, making Catal wonder if his face is really that scary. After returning the child, Catal tries to assure the elves he is not an enemy, but they remain on guard. Catal watches arrows ricochet around him, reflecting that nature is where only the strong survive, just like those attacking him. With a simple gesture of calm, Catal unleashes a massive burst of purple energy, disintegrating the attack and showcasing his overwhelming power. Shocked by the sudden destruction, the elf elder barely reacts, questioning what is happening around him. Amidst the crater, Catal faces the elf and calmly states he is not an enemy, despite the devastation. Catal clasps his hands and reflects, realizing he may not have controlled his own strength. Catal braces for impact as a flaming phoenix-shaped arrow flies towards him, ready to explode. Amidst the confusion, the Elf Queen appears majestically, questioning what is happening in her domain after being called Your Majesty. The Elf Queen draws her bow, realizing the gravity of the situation and concluding that not even this place is safe for her people. The Elf Elder is shocked to see Catal unharmed, questioning how he survived a direct attack from the Queen. With her bow in hand, the Elf Queen confronts Catal, stating that even a powerhouse like him is attacking them. As the Elf Queen charges an energy arrow, Catal thinks people only listen after you land a blow. The Elf Queen, with a look of pure concentration, prepares to unleash her most devastating magical attack from above. Catal remains impassive as the energy dragon, the apex of the Queen's power, advances to utterly annihilate him. Unfazed, Catal concentrates his own energy into his fist, preparing a counterattack to meet magic with brute force. The Elf Queen's magical attack is pulverized by Catal's punch, which strikes her with an explosion of purple and blue energy. The Elf Queen is in shock, watching Catal's wave of power rip through the air, overwhelmingly approaching her. In silence and amidst the destruction, the Elf Queen falls to the ground, powerless after witnessing Catal's overwhelming strength. With a face pale from shock, the Elf Queen is speechless, unable to comprehend the overwhelming power she witnessed. Realizing they cannot win, the Elf Queen turns and orders everyone to immediately move away from the area. She desperately screams for everyone to flee, and her terrified subjects finally begin running for their lives. The Elf Queen glares at her opponent, acknowledging his strength but swears he will never achieve his goal here. Engulfed in flames, the Elf Queen begins a powerful chant, summoning a being with horns of pure flame. Before Catal appears a bull with flaming fire horns, a spiritual creature of immense power. The Elf Queen gives a direct order to her spirit Piego: annihilate the enemy before him. Annoyed, the fire spirit grumbles that contracts are a nuisance, showing reluctance to obey the command. The Elf Queen summons the fire demon Diego, fulfilling a desperate contract she secured with another tribe to face her enemy. The fire demon accepts the contract to kill the human before him, but suddenly stops, surprised by what he sees. Upon seeing Catal's sinister smile, the demon is shocked and questions if the creature before him is truly human. Catal is perplexed when accused of invading sacred lands, reacting with innocent confusion to the Guardian's hostility. The fire entity despises the human and decides it will reduce him to ashes, leaving no trace behind. Materializing as a flaming bull, the Guardian furiously charges to annihilate the intruder with its devastating power. The Elf Queen is thrown back forcefully, grunting in pain as she crosses her arms to defend against the sudden impact. After being stopped, the Elf Queen looks up, completely confused, not understanding what is happening around her. With his eyes shining intensely, Catal destroys the fire creature with a single punch, demonstrating his overwhelming power. Catal's fist collides with the magical energy, unleashing a blinding explosion that shatters the surrounding reality with pure force. The resulting shockwave advances like a force of nature, carving a path of complete devastation through the forest. The explosion is so immense that it rises into the atmosphere, creating a mushroom cloud that permanently scars the landscape. The Elf Queen falls to her knees on the devastated ground, barely able to process the defeat and wondering what just happened. Looking at the immense crater that formed around her, she thinks, incredulously, that this cannot be real. Defeated, the Elf Queen stares at Catal, who observes her from above, in a silent display of absolute power. Catal confronts the Elf Queen, directly declaring that he is not her enemy and attempting to dissipate her hostility. The Elf Queen stares at him, her gaze revealing shock and doubt as she realizes she may have made a terrible mistake. Conscience weighs on the Elf Queen, who admits she misjudged Catal, mistaking her child's savior for an adversary. The Elf Queen reacts with disbelief, as she hadn't believed humans could survive in the desert Catal came from. She then questions him, asking if his presence means others might also have escaped that desolate place. Catal casually confirms his overwhelming strength, admitting with a smile that he was the one who split the bull in half. Feeling rude, the Elf Queen offers to do anything Catal desires as a form of redemption. She explains that humans with an affinity for nature can form contracts, making Catal think it's impossible for him. Seeing Catal's determination, the Queen advises him to seek the sacred elf to secure a contract. The Elf Queen observes the Great Tree, stating that in the elves' sacred land, where their god resides, her objective might be possible. The Elf Queen guides Catal, explaining that with her introduction he may enter, but he must keep the location an absolute secret. She reveals the location's name, Eldo Sagrado, the elves' sacred land, and the dream destination of every researcher of their race. The Elf Queen hands Catal a magic crystal and tells him to take it, for their god might still test him. Despite the impending test, the Queen expresses confidence that Catal will pass and wishes him luck, to which he thanks her. The elf formally introduces herself as Marcelia Hassian Carusia, Queen of the Leaf Tribe, then asks Catal's name. With a confident smile, a muscular man introduces himself as Catal, the barbarian, ready for whatever lies ahead. Without hesitation, Catal stomps the ground forcefully, cracking the earth beneath his feet as he prepares to charge with speed. With eyes gleaming with power, Catal lunges forward in a blur, his expression focused on his target in the forest. At the border of the Gehent Kingdom, guards panic at a deafening sound, shouting that something is rapidly approaching their territory. Catal lands before the soldiers and greets them with a smile. "You are the guards. Pleased to meet you," he says calmly. The guards tremble, connecting the noisy arrival with the man before them, questioning if he was responsible for all the commotion. Catal becomes confused upon hearing the description of someone with gray hair, realizing it might be about him. Despite the uncertainty, he continues walking steadily towards the castle gates, showing no hesitation in his steps. The guards aggressively intercept him, yelling for him to stop immediately, or they will attack without warning. Catal points firmly forward, staring at the knight with a serious and determined expression, as if giving a silent command. Confused by the barbarian's attitude, the knight is perplexed, not understanding what is happening around him. Turning around, the knight encounters a wall that appeared out of nowhere and questions, shocked. "The wall?" The guards react with astonishment at Catal's request to visit the territory, clearly intimidated by his imposing presence. Seated at the table, Catal expresses his desire to stay for a while, appearing to ponder his current situation. The guard begins the interrogation, directly asking Catal his name to start the formal record. The guard, Alessandro Tyrannus, requests a form of identification, but Catal replies that he has nothing to prove who he is. Instead of documents, Catal places an ornate and shining medallion on the table as proof of his identity. Alessandro is shocked to see the medallion, realizing it is an extremely important and rare symbol. Catal presents the Akasha House crest, explaining he received it from someone of that lineage, and the guard identifies them as a merchant family. The guard inspects the medallion, recalling that House Akasha recently gained prominence under new leadership, and Catal asks if he knows them. Hearing there's a condition for his passage, Catal is visibly surprised, repeating the guard's words with apprehension. Lucento Adenheimer reveals the condition: clear a dungeon with an unknown group, which Catal finds easier than he imagined. Catal accepts the mission with a confident smile, declaring, "Very well, I accept," showing readiness for any challenge. Perplexed by Catal's attitude, Lucento stutters, asking in disbelief if he truly is a barbarian as he claims. With a confident smile, Catal crosses his arms and introduces himself to the group, proudly declaring, "I am a barbarian." The paladin Alessandro Tyrannus sits with crossed arms, lamenting the tragic situation of having to form a party with those people. The thief Kasan Hark confronts Alessandro, asking why he's starting a fight and if he's angry about being tricked. Alessandro rages at Kasan's audacity, questioning how an insignificant thief dares insult a paladin. Unable to contain his rage at the provocations, Alessandro draws his sword in a swift motion, yelling at Cain. Cain stares him down with a taunting smile, calmly challenging him to the approaching fight. Cain and Alessandro cross swords in front of the priestess, who watches in shock at the immediate hostility among the group members. The priestess, Hayes, questions if it will be safe to explore a dungeon with them, feeling apprehensive about the group's situation. Amidst the tension, Hayes reflects that the minimum number for a dungeon is 4, Realizing one more member must arrive, a guard announces the last person has arrived, leaving the other group members anticipating meeting their new companion. Finally, Catal enters the room. His imposing presence, with eyes glowing purple, makes a strong and intimidating first impression. Catal asks if they are his group, while Alessandro, Cain, and the priestess react in shock to his overwhelming pressure and size. With a friendly smile, Catal waves to the group, saying it's a pleasure to finally meet them. Catal turns with a serious expression, instructing the group to talk among themselves before they continue. Intimidated by Catal's presence, a nervous Cain stutters his introduction as a thief. Alessandro explains to a surprised Catal that, being a special paladin, he cannot use holy magic. A woman introduces herself with a smile as Hayes, a cleric of Colossia, leaving Catal curious about her identity. Hayes nervously reveals her god is that of lies and deceit, explaining why her affiliation is not well regarded. The group of Catal, Alessandro, Cain, and the priestess enters a room, where a guard watches them intently from the doorway. As they observe the scene, the priestess startles and clutches her necklace, sensing a disturbing presence in the environment. Catal is visibly shocked by what he finds, his wide eyes revealing his utter surprise at the unexpected sight. Catal's group approaches the glowing dungeon entrance, a forest portal pointed out by a guard. Alessandro informs the team it's a 3-story dungeon, as everyone assesses the challenge ahead. Catal tries to break the ice with a nervous Cain, asking him to drop the sir, as they are now a team. Cain outlines the strategy. Catal and Alessandro on the front lines, him checking for traps, and the sister providing support with her skills. Leading the group into the cave entrance, Catal smiles confidently and commands everyone to advance together on the mission. In the cave's darkness, the sister complains she can't see, while Cain finds the trap-free path suspicious. Catal identifies the scattered bones, warning the group the skeletons will rise to attack if they approach further. Cain realizes they've been tricked, concluding this dungeon is a trap designed to eliminate troublesome outsiders like them. As blue-eyed skeletons rise, Alessandro orders the priestess and others to prepare for the imminent battle. Cain receives instructions to aim for the skeletons' necks, acknowledging the good leadership, and prepares for combat. A warrior skeleton emerges with a bluish aura, and the group, including Alessandro and the priestess, goes on high alert. Without hesitation, Catal charges and delivers a powerful blow, shattering the warrior skeleton with overwhelming force. Cain is shocked by Catal's display of strength, stammering that it wasn't quite what he'd asked to be done. He reflects that pulverizing a skeleton strengthened by dungeon mana should be impossible, admitting he underestimated Catal's strength. As the group stares at the bone dust, Catal seems confused by the reaction, and Cain wonders if he's truly human. Terrified by the situation, the sister and Alessandro cry, lamenting they don't want to die in a place like this. Before Catal, the scattered skeletons on the floor begin to reassemble, rising again for combat. The sister screams, startled by the skeletons, while Alessandro warns everyone that this time they are coming to attack. Catal is knocked to the ground as an imposing warrior skeleton prepares to deliver a mortal blow with its sword. Even at a disadvantage, Catal manages to block the skeleton's powerful downward attack, creating an energy explosion on impact. With a focused gaze, Catal channels his energy through his fingers, preparing to turn the tide with a new ability. The skeleton doesn't hesitate and continues its relentless assault, swinging its sword with a force that echoes through the cave. The Lich Kartos advances with his mana sword, but Catal faces him fearlessly, ready for a direct confrontation. With his bare hand, Catal intercepts Kartos' strike, stopping the skeleton's blade with brute force and surprising ease. Catal asks, "So how about this?" as he crushes the Lich's hand, which crumbles into pieces under his powerful grip. As the skeleton lunges to attack, Catal effortlessly intercepts it, seizing the creature's bony wrist with overwhelming force. With the might of Catal's grip, the skeleton completely loses its balance, easily destabilized and lifted off the ground. With a powerful spin, Catal hurls the undead against the cave wall, showcasing his overwhelming physical superiority. The priestess trembles in horror at the scene, barely able to contain her nausea and fear in the face of such brutality. Watching Catal hold Kartos' skull, the priestess thinks he is a true barbarian. Catal realizes the Lich's skull is still moving on its own and prepares to crush it with his foot. Catal and his companions arrive at a new location, and Cain expresses his apprehension, questioning where they are now. Standing atop a stone staircase, the group realizes they have finally reached the dreaded second floor of the dungeon. The oppressive atmosphere of the place leaves Cain visibly tense, making him break into a cold sweat and nervously pull at his mask. The priestess informs them about a nearby dungeon, and Catal immediately asks if there's any problem with the monsters living inside. The priestess ponders the rewards, stating that defeating the final boss of a dungeon this size should yield substantial treasure. Suddenly, a treasure chest materializes before Catal, who, surprised by its sudden appearance, questions what it is. Cain concludes that only a skilled rogue could open the chest. Out of options, he turns and asks Catal to try unlocking it. Catal emerges with a dark aura, questioning how Cain calls himself a rogue. He stares at him coldly and calls him useless. Terrified by the intimidation, Cain shrinks back. He remembers he must be willing to risk his own life to survive this journey. Catal questions the treasure's value, and the priestess reveals that the amount would sustain a family in luxury for an entire month, surprising everyone. With a serious expression, Catal orders Cain to take care of the rewards, and the rogue accepts the task, feeling the weight of responsibility. The exploration is interrupted when the group finds a massive skeleton on the ground, leaving everyone in apprehensive silence at the discovery. From the depths of the dungeon, a skeleton with glowing eyes rises, marking the beginning of a new confrontation. The group reacts to the threat. Alessandro observes, the priestess prepares a blessing, and Cain braces for attack. Cain immediately springs into action, delivering a swift and precise strike to take down the first of the advancing skeletons. Surrounded by skeletons, Catal smiles and warns them not to interrupt him, declaring he will handle them all alone. Alessandro Tyrannus defends himself with his shield, blocking a skeleton's attack with a determined expression as the enemy blade sparks. In an agile move, Cain leaps over a skeleton, preparing his daggers for a swift and precise aerial attack. The priestess watches in shock as dark energy surges, her golden eyes wide with the sudden manifestation of power. Alessandro Tyrannus raises his sword to block the Shadow of Confusion spell, getting engulfed by an explosion of magical energy. From the depths, a skeleton shrouded in a blue aura rises, letting out a terrifying shriek as it joins the battle. Catal smirks, remarking that it's impressive to see a group's core skip its function, deciding to act on its own. With a swift and powerful move, Catal charges forward and destroys one of the skeletons with a single flaming strike. Cain, the priestess, and Alessandro realize, shocked, that Catal's actions are in fact a test for them. A skeleton materializes amidst the rubble, appearing utterly confused about its own existence and what is happening. After the illusion dissipates, Alessandro, Cain, and the priestess collapse to the ground, exhausted and gasping from the mental strain. With Catal in the lead, the group advances effortlessly through the growing horde of skeletons, clearing a path to the dungeon's end. They reach the deepest part of the dungeon, where an imposing knight in black armor awaits them on a stone throne. The priestess panics, realizing the skeleton is a knight-level monster they have no chance of defeating. The Lich, Kartos, advances with his sword drawn, emanating a dark aura as he prepares for battle against Catal's group. The priestess's eyes widen in pure terror as she perceives the imminent threat of the approaching skeletal knight. Kartos leaps and delivers an energy strike, while a cry of "Watch out!" echoes, warning the group of the devastating attack. Rosa is thrown to the ground, grunting in pain as the attack's energy hits her squarely. The group of adventurers is thrown back by the force of the impact, with Alessandro falling to the ground. Gasping, Alessandro Tyrannus is shocked upon recovering, wondering how a single blow could possess such power. Alessandro's group watches, powerless, as they realize that the Lich Kartos is simply too strong for them. With a sinister glint in his helmet, the Lich channels his dark energy, preparing for the final attack. Unexpectedly, Catal appears on the battlefield, facing the Lich with a serious expression and ready for confrontation. The Lich Kartos Brenulus Kesses is finally defeated, his skeletal body disintegrating in an explosion of magical energy after the final attack. As a reward for victory, an ornate treasure chest appears before the group, gleaming with the promise of valuable items within. The sight of the reward chest leaves Cain, the thief, utterly shocked and greedy, his eyes bulging in pure surprise. Alessandro and the priestess stare in absolute shock at what is happening, utterly terrified by the imminent danger. The tremor catches Catal's attention, who turns to his panicking companions and calmly asks, "What is it?" Cain is exasperated by Catal's nonchalant attitude toward the situation, while the barbarian merely smiles confidently. A guard abruptly stands, shocked by the group's speed, and questions aloud, "What? That fast?" Catal gives a thumbs up with a smile, confirming the task was satisfactory as the guard stammers in surprise. After recomposing himself, the guard instructs Catal's group to follow him one by one for the entry procedure. A guard questions the priestess about Catal's stay in the domain, expressing his concern about the barbarian. The priestess hesitantly replies that it should be fine, noting the guard's uncertainty whenever Catal is the topic. The guard reflects that despite Catal's strength, he didn't harm their group, concluding he's unlike a typical barbarian. Finally, permission is granted to the group, but with a stern warning, any trouble will result in immediate exile. A guard hands over the dungeon reward, telling them to split it, though it's common for guards to confiscate the prize. Catal accepts the coin pouch and thanks him, while the guard thinks that this time he didn't feel like taking the prize. Catal turns to his group and insists the reward must be divided fairly, as they all work together in the dungeon. Casan, Alessandro, and the priestess cry in relief and dread, overwhelmed by the situation and thinking, "Ah, please, just let me go." Captain Lucento realizes Catal is no ordinary barbarian, but the legendary barbarian, an alien existence. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Captain Lucento decides to see the Lord immediately, leaving his post to a subordinate. Lord Luke Barkin, ruler of Barkin Domain, is interrupted in his office and looks up, asking what the matter is. The guard captain formally presents himself to the Lord, reporting that a barbarian has appeared within his domain. Questioned by Lord Akasha, the guard tries to justify his decision, stating he didn't think it would be a big problem. Lord Akasha, with a serious expression, presses the guard, wanting to know what the problem is if the decision was correct. The guard reports the newcomer's terrifying power, revealing he defeated a skeleton knight with a single blow. A guard is astonished to learn Catal defeated a skeleton knight, a monster only elite knights should face, with a single blow. The guard's report raises the possibility of Catal being even stronger, which leaves the observing lord even more apprehensive. Lord Akasha decides he needs to see Catal's power with his own eyes to be at ease, even after being warned it could be dangerous. With a dark knight behind him, Lord Akasha firmly declares, "I have my knight with me," showing he is prepared. He turns to one of his men and asks directly, "What are your thoughts?" seeking an assessment of the situation. After hearing the response, Lord Akasha nods, satisfied with the confident assessment he received from his subordinate. Seated on his throne, Lord Akasha orders the barbarian summoned, declaring he will speak with him personally. Far away, Catal and his companions, Alessandro, Casan, and the sister, enjoy a lavish banquet at a tavern. Catal's table manners, however, leave his teammates utterly shocked and disgusted by the sight. At a tavern, Catal enjoys the atmosphere and food, insisting he's paying and everyone can eat as much as they want. Catal turns to Alessandro and questions him about being a holy knight, leaving the paladin visibly nervous as he confirms. Catal points out he hasn't seen Alessandro use divine power, who apologizes, saying his ability hasn't awakened yet. Catal asks the priestess where her goddess Colosia's temple is, leaving her visibly uncomfortable with the direct questioning. The priestess reflects that Colosia is the goddess of lies and deceit, a deity generally ill-regarded and shunned by all. Completely terrified, the shopkeeper stutters that the shop needs to close, thinking of Catal as a frightening barbarian. The group bids farewell to a queen who dismisses them with a relieved, "We'll never meet again," ending their collaboration with a smile. Finally, in a room, Catal relaxes, thinking that compared to the snowfields, any comfortable bed is a true paradise. A guard arrives at the room and apologizes for waking Catal, who stares at him shirtless. With an imposing presence, Catal opens the door and asks the guard what he wants. The guard, visibly nervous, conveys the message that the Lord wishes to see him personally. As Catal prepares to leave, the accompanying guard doubts they found the right man so easily. Catal gives a thumbs up, thinking if this is luck, he'll gladly accept it, leaving the guard even more confused. The scene shifts to Lord Akasha, who, with a serious expression, grants permission for someone to enter his chambers. Upon entering the room, Catal walks across the red carpet to meet the noble Lord Akasha, who awaits him. Lord Akasha greets him with disdain, but is visibly surprised by Catal's firm reaction during their handshake. The noble is astonished to see Catal bow, thinking, "The barbarian is lowering his head?" An unthinkable act of respect. Catal reflects on his people's pride, stating that barbarians never bow, for to them, strength is everything. Lord Akasha, trying to maintain composure, clears his throat and invites Catal to sit before him. Catal observes the imposing guard in full armor, wondering if he is the knight who protects the Lord. He is amazed, thinking that seeing a real knight is as cool as he imagined in his childhood games. Suddenly, the knight goes on high alert, sensing a powerful and unmistakable murderous intent coming from Catal. Lord Akasha and the captain of the guards eye Catal with suspicion, preparing to interrogate him about his mysterious past and intentions. Catal reveals he came from the White Snowfield, leaving Lord Akasha and his captain completely shocked by the confirmation of his identity. Lord Akasha realizes he stands before the legendary barbarian. Still incredulous, he states that the stories about Catal are hard to believe. Lord Akasha questions Catal's strength, who ponders the true danger his own power represents. Catal replies that the question is flawed, as he is unaware of the power level of this land. To test him, Lord Akasha proposes a duel with his knight, promising a generous reward for the fight. From his throne, Lord Akasha authorizes the confrontation, but warns it is not a fight to the death and trusts them to maintain reason. Before Lord Akasha, Catal grins maliciously, excited by the proposal of a training match against a kingdom's knight. Catal's aura turns dark, and Lord Akasha reflects that a barbarian can never hide his wild love for battle. In the arena, Catal and the knight Lucento Adenheimer face each other, as Lord Akasha watches the duel begin from his throne. With a serious, focused gaze, Lucento Adenheimer prepares for combat, demonstrating his resolve to face the powerful barbarian. Lord Akasha watches the scene with a severe and imposing expression, awaiting the outcome of the confrontation he himself arranged. In the arena, Captain Lucento Adenheimer challenges Catal, stating it's an honor for the barbarian to witness his swordsmanship. Lucento releases his aura, convinced of the overwhelming power difference between them, and prepares to attack with full force. He lunges with a technique that multiplies his sword into energy blades, surprising Catal with a sudden attack. Catal is astonished to realize that the swordsman's triple attack is no illusion, but 3 distinct and dangerously real blows. With an astonished expression, Catal confirms his apprehension about the attack's nature, understanding his opponent's true skill. The captain of the guards smiles disdainfully, asserting that the best Catal can do is merely dodge his attacks. Catal faces his opponent and, with a swift movement, shatters the incoming energy blades using only his bare hands. Surprised by the scene, the captain of the guards is shocked, wondering what just happened to his attack. With overwhelming force, Catal grabs Lucento's armor, preparing to deliver a devastating blow and end the fight at once. Lord Akasha watches the scene in disbelief, unable to process Catal's overwhelming strength. "Whoa, what?" he stutters in utter astonishment. Catal's attack was so brutal it ripped off Lucento's prosthetic hand, which falls inert to the ground, sealing the knight's defeat. A single blow from Catal creates a massive fissure in the ground, leaving an elite knight sitting stunned amidst the debris of destruction. Lord Akasha sits shocked on his throne, questioning what monstrous power could defeat his best knight with a single attack. With a sneer, Catal turns to the Lord and asks, "Is that all?" showing utter contempt for his opponent's strength. Lord Akasha glares at Cain with disdain, stating that his hobbies remain as unpleasant as ever. With a smile, Cain justifies himself, saying it had been a while since he had a visitor. Master Swordsman Cain, arms crossed, sharply questions what matter is supposedly meant to interest him. Lord Akasha bows, respectfully greeting Grandmaster Swordsman Cain and expressing the honor of receiving him. With a piercing and stern gaze, Cain silently observes the scene, awaiting an explanation to justify his presence. Alessandro Tyrannus wakes in his bed to find Lord Akasha, who questions him about his condition after the battle. Master Cain intervenes, saying he is the one who deserves an apology, as his foolish student was defeated by some barbarian. Observing the shattered armor, a man wonders if Catal showed mercy, as his opponent's body was completely unharmed. With a serious look, Cain concludes that Catal's power so exceeds that of a knight that he can afford to show mercy. The men are visibly shocked as they process the incredible display of power and control they just witnessed from Catal. Lord Akasha, with a serious expression, begins a comparison, asking Cain about Catal's strength relative to his own. Master Swordsman Cain confidently declares that, despite Catal's superhuman strength, he is no match for a true master like him. The conversation evokes the image of a legendary human from the White Desert, whose nature is questioned, suggesting something beyond a mere mortal. As Lord Akasha questions him, Cain dismisses a disturbing thought, convinced he must be mistaken about what he felt. With a serious look, Cain decides it's a matter for another time, pondering the complications involving the Emperor. Cain dismisses Lord Akasha's concern, telling him not to worry about the matter for now, leaving him without answers. Cain questions Lord Akasha about a barbarian's presence in the domain, and the Lord confirms Catal said he would stay there. With a serious expression, Master Swordsman Cain decides he will need to see the newcomer's power for himself. The narration describes how skilled mercenaries are just cannon fodder for dirty work and often die in dangerous dungeons. Provoked, one of the men accepts the challenge and shouts for his opponent to come at him, starting the fight in the guild. As tension mounts, other mercenaries watch with amusement, placing bets on who will win the dispute. As mercenaries fight in the background, a colleague asks Rosa, the guild receptionist, about the day's new recruits. Rosa sighs, disappointed with her job, and replies that the new candidates are terrible, calling them a bunch of weirdos. Frustrated, she laments there's no one decent and fantasizes about a handsome prince rescuing her from her guild job. A blonde woman watches the scene in surprise, her eyes wide at the sudden arrival of a new visitor. Catal's imposing presence shocks the guild receptionist, who freezes as she watches him approach the counter. Oblivious to the panic his arrival caused, Catal simply looks around with a confused and innocent expression. With a confident smile, Catal introduces himself at the guild, declaring he has come to become a mercenary. When questioned, Catal states his name for registration but admits he doesn't know his own age. Holding his new golden badge, Catal examines it with a satisfied smile, approving the result of his registration. Catal excitedly asks the receptionist about available jobs, showing he wants to take a mission immediately. The receptionist presents Catal with a list, explaining those are the only requests he can accept at the moment. She grows nervous, thinking that as a rank F mercenary, he might get enraged by the simple tasks, as barbarians are proud. As the receptionist suggests he start with simple tasks, Catal abruptly interrupts her, declaring he has already chosen a mission. He points to the most basic task on the list, a rank F mission to collect herbs, leaving the attendant perplexed. Ignoring her surprise, Catal asks with a smile where he can start collecting the herbs ready for his first task. A receptionist shows Catal a drawing of a medicinal herb, explaining the plant can be found in the village's surroundings. Catal accepts the mission with a confident smile, taking the drawing and stating he's already leaving for the collection. After Catal's departure, Rosa and the other receptionist react, shocked by the barbarian's surprisingly calm demeanor. In the forest, Catal compares a drawing with the actual plant he needs to collect, pondering the task he was given. An hour later, at the Mercenary Guild, Catal throws a giant sack of herbs onto the counter, leaving the receptionist in shock. Catal asks if the quantity is sufficient, and the astonished receptionist wonders if he destroyed the entire herb field. Princess Elene stares at the result of Catal's work in shock, barely able to believe what she's seeing. She notices the flowers are in perfect condition, commenting that most mercenaries rip them out, decreasing their value. With a confident air, Catal states that, despite his appearance, he possesses a surprisingly delicate touch for the task. The guild receptionist cries, thinking the new mercenary is also a weirdo for choosing such mundane tasks. Despite her apprehension, she presents the contract to Catal and, nervously, asks him to accept the cleaning request. Catal introduces himself to the warehouse owner, who is completely shocked to realize a barbarian has come for the service. Catal begins his next task of cleaning the streets. Initially, controlling his immense strength with a simple broom proves an unexpected challenge. An observer notes that Catal isn't working reluctantly. On the contrary, he's sweeping the streets with utmost seriousness and dedication. While a bystander wonders why he is this way, Catal feels utterly fulfilled, finding the task of cleaning extremely gratifying. After an exhausting day, Catal enters the guild to finally receive payment for his completed missions. He is congratulated on his first day and presented with his reward for completing an impressive 15 missions. The receptionist smiles and hands him a pouch with 15 silver coins, payment for his hard work. Catal stops his walk upon spotting a large building, questioning in surprise if it's truly a library. Upon entering, the librarian looks up, surprised by Catal's figure, and her welcome greeting dies in her throat. Catal reads calmly in the library, intriguing the librarian who watches him in silence, surprised by the unusual scene. He discovers that the current empire is extremely powerful and has begun an aggressive expansion, as if it wants to swallow the entire world. Catal decides to research other races, opening a book to see what is written about non-human beings. The book describes fantastic locations, including the Sanctuary of the Elves, a sacred ground whose location no one knows. With a confident smile, Catal realizes he has finally acquired the necessary qualification to find the Elven Sanctuary. The world harbors 5 vast demonic zones, places that reject human presence and are filled with distorted alien beings. One such zone is the Silent Forest, a place that, as its name suggests, plunges all things into a deadly quietude. Next, there is the Abyss, an infernal realm that drags the world into evil, where sinister demons reign amidst the flames. Catal reflects on how vast the world is, realizing that the frozen land he came from was just a small part of it. Satisfied with the information obtained, he thanks the attendant, who is visibly nervous about his imposing presence. Upon arriving at the guild, Catal approaches receptionist Rosa and directly asks about the types of missions available. Deeming Catal's behavior strange, Swordmaster Cain decides he needs to confront him directly to uncover the truth about him. Catal surprises Cain, ironically questioning if he's resorting to theft at his age, suggesting the economy is worse than he imagined. Catal is caught off guard by Cain's charge, exclaiming, "What?" as a purple aura of power explodes from him in maximum alert. Realizing Catal would grab him if he stood still, Cain uses a green energy technique to escape, leaving the barbarian confused by his agility. Shocked by the situation, Cain thinks, "It can't be. He almost got me," impressed by the barbarian's overwhelming speed. Cain narrowly dodges, thinking in shock that if he were a little slower, he would have been caught by Catal's attack. Unleashing his aura, Cain charges with everything, shouting that he will no longer hold back and that the fight is now for real. Cain reels in shock, realizing that even with his maximum perception, he was unable to react to Catal's speed. Cain is seized with immense force, realizing it's no mere grip but a display of overwhelming power. He screams in agony, questioning the origin of this superhuman strength and realizing it's no mere power struggle. Enveloped in a green aura, Catal casts aside his restraint and prepares to unleash his full strength against the Swordmaster. Catal grasps Cain's head, unleashing a wave of green energy that completely engulfs him, much to the swordsman's surprise. The explosion of power hurls Cain backward, sending him skidding across the floor as he struggles against the overwhelming force of Catal's attack. Shocked, Cain watches his own energy dissipate from his hand, utterly nullified by the barbarian's raw power. With a smile, Catal realizes Cain truly believes him a thief, completely underestimating the situation. Cain is stunned to see that his manifested mana didn't cause a scratch on Catal, and wonders what kind of body he possesses. Cain stares at Catal, incredulous, questioning how anyone could withstand manifested mana with their bare hands. Cain attacks with his sword, but is utterly shocked when Catal stops the blow with his bare hands without moving an inch. With a strenuous cry, Cain strains to push his blade, but Catal's strength is an unyielding wall, rendering his effort futile. Clutching his sword, Catal's eyes gleam intensely, not merely defending but dissecting the master's technique. Cain sheds a tear, believing this is the end as purple energy engulfs him, his hand outstretched in desperation. A guard is frantic at the sight, wondering why Swordmaster Cain is there and fearing an attack. A terrified guard screams, "Bandit!" finally comprehending the gravity of his predicament. One of the guards is utterly bewildered by the sudden turn of events, unable to comprehend the accusation being made. Catal reacts with surprise to the butler's trembling and averted gaze, clearly hiding the truth. Catal directly accuses him, declaring his innocence impossible. "This man is a bandit who attacked me to steal my coins." Lord Akasha reacts with incredulity, questioning aloud how Sir Cain could have lost the duel to the barbarian. Following the confrontation, Catal offers a repentant apology, admitting he should have allowed his opponent to explain before the fight. With his head bowed, Swordmaster Cain also accepts his share of the blame, acknowledging that he too erred by remaining silent. Cain's attendant warns him that despite his master being a swordsman, the barbarian Catal is an utterly uncontrollable and dangerous being. Feeling a headache, Lord Akasha withdraws, suggesting Catal and Cain talk to resolve what he calls a misunderstanding. Catal sits, staring directly at Cain, sparking a tense conversation that visibly unsettles the master swordsman. As he drinks, Cain reflects on his perfect defeat, feeling his pride utterly shattered and humiliated. Regaining his composure, he places a hand over his chest and formally introduces himself as Swordmaster Cain. Catal stares at him, asking directly if the technique he had shown was truly that of a swordmaster. Catal recalls the attack, admitting that, as it was a swordmaster's skill, he is now very interested in it. Upon seeing the memories of the power in action, Catal finally understands that the mysterious energy he saw earlier was aura. With eyes shining with excitement, Catal leans in and asks Cain how he can learn to wield this incredible skill. Cain manifests a sphere of arcane energy, explaining that one must control the arcane to manifest such power. Shocked, Cain admits that, shamefully, he is still learning and lacks knowledge, despite his experience. Reaffirming himself as a swordmaster, Cain decides to teach Catal the way of the sword to recover his wounded pride. Cain introduces himself as a swordmaster, declaring that, without his sword, he is only half a man, incomplete in his essence. Facing Cain with a sword, Catal observes that his technique relies on skill, not strength, and the master agrees. Cain explains that swordsmanship is the art of fusing sword and aura, and whoever masters this path becomes a true master. Swordmaster Cain demonstrates his technique, imbuing his blade with a brilliant green aura to teach Catal. Catal watches, completely marveling at the power. "Oh, so this is aura!" he exclaims in awe. Tired of abstract explanations, Cain decides to show the power directly and prepares a strike for the barbarian. Cain's attack strikes the ground and splits into 5 energy beams, surprising those observing the technique. Cain explains that many techniques use aura to create illusions, while his sword emanates a powerful green energy. He then boasts, stating that only his swordsmanship can give real substance to these aura illusions. Cain's face contorts in shock and disbelief, shaken by an unexpected question or observation from Catal. Cain reflects that his swordsmanship, the fruit of a lifetime, could not be copied with a single glance. To the master's surprise, Catal smiles and reveals his weapon for the demonstration, an axe. Catal then assumes a combat stance, preparing to wield the axe in a completely unexpected way. Cain observes Catal's strike, shocked to realize that the swift movement is pure brute force, with no sword technique involved. The force of Catal's strike unleashes a devastating shockwave, destroying the hall's floor in a straight line of pure destruction. Cain is left speechless, completely incredulous at the demonstration of overwhelming power he just witnessed, surpassing all his expectations. After his demonstration, Catal rests his axe on his shoulder and, with a smile, asks Cain what he thought of his skill. Cain criticizes Catal's demonstration, stating it was merely a brute force strike, devoid of technique, even if the outcome was similar. Cain admits to himself that Catal isn't wrong, but his pride as a master swordsman is deeply wounded by the barbarian's logic. Cain grips his sword, challenging Catal. "In that case, how about this?" he declares, preparing for a decisive strike. Cain unleashes a swift technique, creating multiple images of himself enveloped in a green energy aura to attack Catal. Amidst the dust of destruction, Catal observes the attack's aftermath, appearing completely unharmed and thoughtful about what he witnessed. Master Swordsman Cain confronts Catal and directly challenges him, asking if he can copy his technique. Immediately, Catal replicates the move, unleashing a powerful wave of purple energy that obliterates the ground around him. Cain is utterly shocked and speechless, unable to believe his secret skill was perfectly imitated. Catal unleashes a devastating energy vortex and asks Cain what he thinks, revealing he copied his secret technique. Amidst the dust of destruction, Catal reveals himself with a confident smile, satisfied with the power he just demonstrated. Cain falls to his knees, screaming in despair as he laments his swordsmanship, a lifetime's work, having been perfectly imitated. Kneeling in defeat, Master Swordsman Cain cannot believe what he saw, thinking in despair that it cannot be real. Catal stands impassively over Cain, stating he merely moved his axe quickly and that it wasn't true swordsmanship. Cain rises, insisting the technique was real and regretting his own inability to achieve the true mastery he witnessed. Cain reaffirms the value of his swordsmanship, the only one capable of materializing illusion and reality, as he demonstrates his technique. Cain is perplexed by Catal's strength, who moves like a blur without using aura, questioning if he is human. Amidst the destroyed terrain, Cain apologizes to Catal, admitting he got carried away by emotions during their confrontation. Cain, with energy in his hand, explains that to control aura, one must understand the arcane, something neither mages nor swordsmen can ignore. He clarifies that the only ones exempt are believers, whose miracles come directly from their gods, not from their individual skill. Cain emphasizes that the most basic step is arcane perception, the stage where one begins to know and feel this inner power. Catal seems surprised to learn that not everyone can feel the arcane, and Cain explains that talent is required for it. Cain continues his lesson, stating that power classification is merely a convention with unclear boundaries between classes. After Catal confirms he understood the explanation, Cain takes his stance and announces that training will begin immediately. Master Swordsman Cain instructs Catal on the first step of the arcane arts, which he calls arcane perception. Following the instructions, Catal sits in meditation, concentrating deeply to expand his senses and perceive the world in a new way. In an instant, Cain is shocked to realize Catal has already sensed the arcane energy, a surprisingly swift feat. Cain is perplexed, as he believed someone of Catal's strength would easily sense the arcane. The master then offers to channel energy directly into Catal, proposing to open his path to the arcane. Visibly surprised by the offer, Catal asks if Cain will truly transfer his aura to him. Cain observes Catal and, agreeing with what he saw, states it is something like that, concluding the initial training phase. Cain tells Catal to prepare. Visibly nervous and blushing, the barbarian agrees to his master's instruction. Cain touches Catal's shoulder and instructs him to relax and feel the mana he is channeling into his body. Cain is shocked by Catal's body, questioning if he is human, while the barbarian finally awakens and calls his name. Cain attempts to initiate an aura flow to find Catal's arcane path, but is surprised to perceive something unexpected. While trying to analyze Catal, Cain realizes he cannot find the arcane path within his body, sensing there is something more. Catal is startled by Cain's interruption, who clears his throat to get his attention, leaving the barbarian utterly confused by the situation. Cain explains that to find the arcane, Catal needs to awaken a dormant force within him, not merely receive aura. Frustrated on the ground, Catal says he already knows all this but shows he cannot apply the knowledge to progress. Catal is stunned, questioning if this means he is incapable of sensing the arcane, the source of magic. Cain explains he couldn't even confirm if the path to the arcane exists in Catal, leaving him even more confused. As Catal processes the information, Cain stares at him and declares his body is simply unnatural. The Sword Master Cain reveals a problem. Catal's body is so dense that his own aura cannot penetrate it to find the arcane. Catal becomes frustrated, fearing he may never reach the arcane, while Cain admits he's unsure and suggests he go to the mage's tower. With a determined gaze, Catal reflects that there is still a chance, and for now, that is enough for him to continue his journey. Catal closes his hand, pensive, as he ponders the situation, murmuring that, even so, there is something more. With a smile, Catal thanks Cain, stating he learned a lot from him. The Swordmaster watches him with a serious expression. Cain proposes Catal swear loyalty to the kingdom and receive a post, leaving the barbarian confused by what he means. A king ponders that with Catal's power, he could even shake the Empire's control, showing how valuable the barbarian is. Cain makes his offer to Catal, questioning if a noble title wouldn't be enough to tempt him to join his cause. With a confident smile, Catal refuses Cain's proposal, declaring he chooses to enjoy his freedom above any title or power. With a smile, Catal extends his hand in gratitude, promising he will never forget the kindness shown to him. Lord Akasha hears with apprehension that the Emperor truly wishes to conquer the demon, even if it costs his men's lives. Cain confirms the gravity of the situation, pondering if the Emperor fancies himself some kind of reborn hero from the past. Lord Akasha, with a worried expression, concludes that the Empire's summons is inevitable, merely a matter of time until it happens. Cain leans back in his chair, weary, lamenting that with the world in disarray, the half-mad Emperor is a massive headache. Upon hearing about the Emperor, Lord Akasha becomes visibly alarmed, his expression revealing the gravity of the Empire's unstable political situation. Cain confirms to Lord Akasha with a serious gaze that the rumors are true. The demons have begun to move. Upon hearing the confirmation, Lord Akasha is visibly shocked, his eyes widening in disbelief at the alarming news. Cain lets out a heavy sigh, understanding the terrible gravity of the situation and the approaching danger with the demon's advance. Cain asks Lord Akasha for his opinion, but the noble, visibly tense, admits he doesn't know what to make of the situation. Determined to change his appearance, Catal enters a luxury tailor shop where a tailor greets him while adjusting a suit. Catal's entrance with his barbaric appearance causes such a shock to the tailor that he becomes paralyzed with fear and surprise. At a tailor shop, Catal discovers there are no clothes his size. The nervous tailor offers to make a custom order if he can wait. The tailor imagines Catal's fury if the clothes don't fit. Terrified, he wonders if he'll survive this task. At the guild, the receptionist Rosa looks confused at an item presented to her and asks, "Do you know what this is?" Catal hands over a blue orb he found, and the receptionist immediately notices it's no ordinary object. Examining the orb, the receptionist wonders why it seems so valuable, feeling a mysterious energy emanating from it. Suddenly, with a snap of his fingers, Catal seems to activate some hidden function of the mysterious artifact. Suddenly, Rosa's eyes widen in shock as she looks at the blue orb, as if seeing something unexpected. Holding the item, Rosa enters a deep trance, completely hypnotized by the blue orb's mysterious glow. Catal realizes something is wrong and tries to snap her out of the trance, asking worriedly if she's all right. Catal sits before the receptionist, but hesitates to ask a question and tells her to forget about it. The attendant holds an orb, feeling a strange energy, and offers to send it for appraisal. Ignoring the offer, Catal asks with a smile what jobs are available for the day. Catal relaxes in a bath, satisfied with what he considers another rewarding and successful day. Suddenly, he is startled by a mysterious voice from the orb calling him, "Come to me!" The orb shines intensely in his palm as the enigmatic voice continues to echo in his mind. Catal contemplates in silence, with a serious expression, as magical dust floats around him, indicating a summons. Sitting on the ground, he finally decides, thinking to himself that it's best to answer the call once and for all. Arriving at the entrance of a dark cave, Catal stops and wonders if he has finally found the place that called him. As magical chains bind him, a voice mocks Catal, calling him a sacrifice and a worthy offering to a god. The Lich Kartos reveals himself and declares with a sinister gaze that Catal is the 10th victim he awaited for his ritual. Within a purple magic circle, the Lich Kartos waits, emanating an aura of dark power with his staff in hand. A mage who manipulated realms was hunted by heroes. Before his fall, he transferred his soul to a vessel, becoming a Lich. The Lich Kartos offers sacrifices to form a mana core, planning to use its great power to, once again, conquer the world. The Lich Kartos observes Catal through magic, considering that by his size, he will be an excellent offering for his dark rituals. He reveals that his enchanted orb only attracts those who haven't awakened to the arcane, considering them ignorant and easy to capture. Seeing Catal appear indifferent, Kartos concludes that the barbarian is merely a common soul, and that his resistance must be a mere coincidence. Upon entering, Catal feels an overwhelming presence and stares into the bright blue eyes of a skeletal figure watching him from the darkness. The creature fully reveals itself, an imposing Lich, Kartos, who rises in his sanctuary, ready to confront the intruder. Catal can barely believe he's seeing a real Lich, the ultimate villain of stories, as Kartos questions him about his identity. Observing the skeletons, Catal understands how Kartos lures his victims, realizing it's a trap to draw people to the location. The Lich Kartos is confused, as he senses no arcane power in Catal, concluding that he is merely a common barbarian. Kartos accuses Catal of possessing a mental protection artifact, but the barbarian simply denies having such an item. Annoyed, Kartos activates his power, telling Catal he could have died painlessly if he had surrendered to the spell. Catal declares that he will now have to crush his opponent by force, as skeletons rise from the ground around him. The Lich Kartos reveals himself and summons his skeletal minions, ordering his servants to attack the barbarian. Without hesitation, one of the skeleton warriors leaps towards Catal, initiating the attack with fury. Catal effortlessly defends himself, blocking the blow and shattering the skeleton's sword with his own blade. The Lich Kartos summons his skeletal warriors, declaring he only needs to keep Catal alive, nothing more. Under Kartos' order to attack, Catal calmly faces the skeleton advancing to destroy him. Disdainful, Catal grumbles and clenches his fist, preparing to crush the approaching undead. Catal charges without hesitation, delivering powerful blows that shatter the skeletal warriors and send them flying with brute force. The impact of his attacks creates a shockwave, leaving the Lich Kartos visibly surprised by Catal's overwhelming power. Watching a skeleton disintegrate, Catal confirms his tactic, thinking, Casan was right. If the head is destroyed, they die. Catal faces his opponent, gripping the magic staff. He warns he won't be gentle anymore, preparing for a serious attack. The crystal on Catal's staff glows intensely, unleashing a wave of magical power to execute the warrior's summoning command. Catal observes the summoned skeletal knight, finding the twist interesting. He then gives the creature a direct order: kill him. The Lich Kartos charges and strikes with his enchanted sword, aiming directly at Catal. The attack explodes with devastating force, shattering the ground in a blast of purple energy and debris. Amidst the dissipating smoke, Catal's silhouette reveals he withstood the powerful assault. Catal faces the Lich Kartos, acknowledging his strength by saying, "Oh, you're tougher than the others." The Lich Kartos prepares for a devastating attack, concentrating on unleashing his mana to its maximum limit. Putting his plan into action, Kartos unleashes a torrent of magical power in an overwhelming, direct attack. As the Lich Kartos regenerates, Alessandro Tyrannus reflects that the sanctity of knighthood lies in the sword that revives him. Without hesitation, Catal charges and delivers a devastating punch, shattering Kartos' skull with a violent impact. Catal lands calmly as the Lich's remains scatter, and Kartos' skull screams in shock before disintegrating. Catal steps on and crushes the hand of a skeletal knight attempting to grab his foot, demonstrating his overwhelming brute strength. The Lich Kartos analyzes the barbarian, confused by detecting no arcane energy or mana from an artifact. Observing the feat, Kartos wonders if such strength is possible and concludes that Catal is truly someone special. With his skeletal hand glowing with power, the Lich Kartos decides to intervene and declares he will personally deal with Catal. Confused by the hostility, Catal explains he didn't come to fight, but rather because one of the orbs summoned him. Catal then asks if it wasn't the Lich himself who scattered the orbs, causing Kartos to falter at the unexpected question. Kartos casts a powerful spell, declaring that the barbarian Catal will serve as the cornerstone for his resurrection. The spell hits Catal squarely, who reacts with surprise to the powerful magic's impact. Skeletal warriors are summoned, rising with magical energy to fulfill the order: capture the barbarian. Moving with agility, Catal intercepts one of the summoned skeletons and shatters it with a single, powerful blow. The impact of the attack is so overwhelming that the skeleton is thrown backward, completely disintegrating in the air. Catal attacks the Lich Kartos, finding the fight disappointing and expressing his boredom with the mage's performance. Kartos is shocked that Catal is still standing and takes offense at the comparison of his magic to low-level spells. Ignoring the barbarian, Kartos begins to conjure new magic, summoning dark formless chains to attack. Catal watches in shock as the magic circle is swallowed, a voice ordering the energy to be consumed entirely. Believing he has won, the Lich Kartos lets out a maniacal laugh, celebrating the apparent destruction of his opponent. Kartos declares victory, but his celebration is interrupted as he begins to violently choke on a dark liquid. Kartos, the Lich, falls to the ground in shock, looking at Catal, who approaches imposingly and completely unharmed by the attack. Kartos doesn't understand how Catal resisted, but the barbarian says that, while impressive, the attack did absolutely nothing to him. With the enemy mentally broken, Catal tightens his grip on his weapon, preparing to end the confrontation once and for all. Catal stares at the Lich, who confirms his suspicions. "You came here knowing who I am," Kartos says, understanding the situation. Kartos laughs, impressed that the Imperio found him so quickly. He vows to rise again to crush them and rule the world once more. The Lich realizes that Catal is a blade forged solely to kill him, an assassin sent directly by the Imperio to stop him. With a gleaming eye, Kartos declares his name and objective. "I will kill you and bring down the Imperio." Catal observes the Lich's desperate action and, completely confused by the situation, wonders, is he insane? A spectral urn fires a beam of energy that hits Catal squarely, initiating the Lich's dangerous possession process. Within Catal's mind, the Lich Kartos is shocked, for the barbarian's inner world is a place he never imagined could exist. As Catal dominates him with a dark aura, the Lich Kartos thinks, shocked, that not even the Imperio could create such power. With the final words, "Huh?" the Lich disintegrates, leaving Catal completely confused and not understanding what happened. After Kartos' disintegration, Catal bends down to pick up a small urn, the only item left on the ground. Catal inspects the Lich's staff, remembering that the object glowed intensely when he used magic, piquing his interest. With a satisfied smile, Catal decides it's best to keep the magic staff for himself and places it in his inventory. He then spots a vase, pondering if, as a Lich's possession, it might be a receptacle of life. Catal holds the newly acquired jar, planning to ask Rosa to appraise it, oblivious to its true purpose. Examining a strange wall mechanism, Catal wonders if it's the entrance to a secret room. Catal is surprised as Correct appears, confirming he activated the hidden passage. As they're teleported, Alessandro observes Cain, who appears dejected, head bowed by the perilous situation. Catal's group floats into Lich Kartos' hidden sacrificial chamber, an unexpected, deadly fate. Catal pauses, pondering what to do now that they've fallen into a trap. With the situation resolved, Catal regains composure, announcing his intent to return to the estate for now. Entering the office, Catal approaches the woman waiting at her desk. The receptionist greets him with a smile, formally addressing him as Lord Catal. However, she is visibly confused by his request, thinking, "Things, you say?" A woman doubts Catal's story, finding it impossible for one of the world's 5 leashes to be in such a remote place. She's terrified when Catal reveals the jar held not only the Lich, but other people too. Alerted by the commotion, a guard bursts in, panicked, demanding if the shocking Lich story is true. Catal asks the guard if he knows Kartos. The guard, visibly nervous, confirms it, sweating at the name's mere mention. Catal scoffs at the legend, explaining Kartos wasn't impressive, merely self-destructing with his own oddities. Incredulous, the guard calls it absurd, finding it impossible for such a powerful mage to meet such a pathetic end. The news shocks one present, who stands stunned and sweating cold at the confirmed imminent threat. Lord Akasha reacts on his throne, incredulous that a Lich appeared right next to his territory. The guard confirms it's a Lich, presenting the phylactery as physical proof, leaving Lord Akasha no doubt. Lord Akasha closes his eyes, exhausted, thinking the entire mage situation had become a tremendous headache. A guard reports to Lord Akasha that Catal fortunately saved them from being Mage Kartos' first victims in his Lich resurrection. The guard concludes his theory. Kartos was likely already transforming into a Lich, explaining the abnormality. Lord Akasha reflects on the notable feat, deciding he must offer a commensurate reward. The grand doors open in a flash of light, announcing a visitor's arrival for Lord Akasha. The Lord's eyes widen, paralyzed by shock and surprise as he sees who approaches him. Stunned, Lord Akasha wonders about the meaning of this visit, questioning in thought. Why is he here? The Sun God Inquisitor meets a lord in an opulent room, commencing a tense and highly important meeting. With a hand on his chest, the noble formally introduces himself as Luke Varkan, Lord of the Varkan estate, expressing his honor. The woman reveals herself as Aquas, the Sun God Inquisitor, declaring her authority as judge of heresy in the name of her deity. Seated on her throne, the Sun God Inquisitor observes Lord Akasha and remarks that the estate has been quite noisy lately. Lord Akasha explains a dungeon problem was resolved, but internally wonders her true reason for being there, if not the Lich. With a serious expression, the Inquisitor presses him, asking directly the true reason for her unexpected visit to the estate. The Sun God Inquisitor demands Lord Akasha recount the estate's recent events before sharing her own information. Lord Akasha hesitates, and the Inquisitor wonders if the barbarian who defeated the Light is involved in the incidents. He reveals that the Lich Kardos was involved, shocking the Inquisitor, who wonders how such a being could be there. Lord Akasha then presents a vase, identifying it as Kardos's phylactery, to the Inquisitor's surprise. Lord Akasha is startled by the Inquisitor's sudden presence, as she glares down at him while he rests in his armchair. The Inquisitor questions him with a severe look, asking if the barbarian still remains on the estate, firmly holding her necklace. Upon hearing that the man who defeated even Lord Cain is still in the territory, the Inquisitor is shocked by the revelation. The Sun God Inquisitor, with a stern expression, questions about the barbarian and requests a personal meeting to assess him directly. A guard informs Catal that the Sun God Inquisitor requested a meeting with him, setting the encounter at the local church. With a confident smile, Catal accepts the invitation and tells the guard not to worry, showing himself ready for the meeting. Catal approaches a guard, who observes him with surprise upon noticing his imposing presence. With a confident smile, Catal crosses his arms and announces, "Let's go, ready for the next stage." Alessandro guides Catal to the destination, announcing, "This is the place." The barbarian looks surprised as he gazes around. Catal gapes at the magnificent structure, realizing it's the Sun God Church and letting out a wow of admiration. With an impressed expression, Catal approaches the church entrance, absorbing the grandeur of the place before entering. Inside a cathedral, the Sun God nuns gather in solemn prayer, awaiting the arrival of their leader. A woman formally introduces herself as the Sun God Inquisitor, her imposing presence filling the sacred space. She is questioned about the dungeon incident and Kartos, the Lich she claims to have defeated due to his atrocities. The Inquisitor proposes that her god directly witness the conversation, leaving Catal perplexed by the unusual request. To her surprise, Catal seems excited by the idea. The Inquisitor wonders why he isn't uncomfortable. Catal responds with complete confidence, stating he has nothing to hide and thus doesn't mind being observed by a god. The Inquisitor begins a sacred ritual, asking her god to use their gaze to reveal any falsehood present in the area. Surprised by a dazzling golden light descending upon him, Catal wonders what is happening around him. Catal encounters an immense celestial presence, a sight so grand he can barely comprehend its scale. An overwhelming golden light floods the hall, enveloping Catal and the Inquisitor as the power manifests before them. The Sun God's Inquisitor reacts with surprise, feeling the unexpected magnitude of power filling the place. Kardos reflects that Catal was lucky, for if he could use magic, the barbarian wouldn't be there now. The Inquisitor apologizes for her rudeness, but Catal says he enjoyed it. She then asks to pose one last personal question. Surprised, the Inquisitor asks if Catal truly came from there, and he simply confirms it, leaving her shocked. Catal reflects, finding the power used to detect lies excessive, as it's uncommon for a god to look directly at someone. Following Catal's observation, the Sun God's Inquisitor stares at him and agrees with his assessment of divine power. The Sun God's Inquisitor reflects on a revelation, admitting she thought Catal was the target, but realized she was wrong. Seated in her chair, she apologizes to Catal, regretfully confessing she hid her true intentions from him all along. Surprising the Inquisitor with his direct question, Catal confronts her and demands to know what the divine revelation truly said. Lord Akasha dismisses the Emperor's threat, assuring them they needn't worry about his direct intervention, which would bring chaos. He analyzes Catal's power and concludes that if all barbarians were like him, they would have already begun a large-scale conquest. The Inquisitor observes Lord Akasha, who reacts with shock to new information, heightening tension over upcoming moves. With a serious look, Lord Akasha addresses Catal, stating that as a lord he has something to tell him. Lord Akasha expresses his gratitude, acknowledging Catal as the one who saved his domain from destruction by Lich Kartos. The lord then surprises Catal with an apology, leaving the barbarian confused and asking the reason. Lord Akasha reflects that defeating Kartos is a tremendous feat, but he fears the Emperor will act personally if the news reaches his ears. Catal calmly accepts the situation, stating he doesn't mind relinquishing the glory he deserves for his great deed. Lord Akasha then informs that, while not an apology, he has prepared a reward for Catal saving his domain. Lord Akasha presents a bag to Catal, announcing it as the Lord's reward, leaving the barbarian visibly surprised. The leather bag shines brightly, indicating Catal's reward is far more valuable than it first appears. Lord Akasha explains it's no ordinary pouch and encourages Catal to discover its true value himself. Catal holds the small pouch, realizing it's a magical artifact, something he'd never personally seen before. Lord Akasha explains the item can hold objects larger than its opening, revealing its extraordinary nature. Shocked, Catal pulls a giant axe from the bag as Lord Akasha declares it a reward for saving the territory. While Catal feels relieved, Lord Akasha expresses joy from his throne, promising good use of the gift he received. Cain observes demons emerging and concludes something strange is happening in the world with the arrival of abnormal creatures. At the guild, a receptionist has an idea and presents a new job opportunity to Catal, who listens intently. Catal asks what it is, and she reveals it's a mission to investigate a village that lost all contact. She highlights the high reward for a simple dispatch task, leaving Catal to ponder the strange offer. Meanwhile, the priestess stands silently by a tree, her worried expression revealing her thoughts on the situation. Catal emerges in a new outfit, posing confidently and wondering if the clothes caused this new impression. Catal asks the priestess if the request is complicated, and she replies the task itself is simple, but dangerous. The priestess reflects the reward is too great, recalling the rumor that guards who accepted the mission never returned. Surprised by the absence of other mercenaries, Catal comments he expected at least 10 people to have shown up for the mission. The priestess informs Catal that another rumor has spread, and he seems amused by the news. It's revealed that the imposing heretic inquisitor of the sun god will accompany them on the mission. The priestess panics, thinking few dare work with the inquisitor and fearing she will kill her. Catal surprises the priestess by stating he knows the approaching inquisitor, confidently declaring she is his friend. Shocked by the revelation, the priestess watches Catal walk away to meet the feared heretic inquisitor. Upon finding the inquisitor, Catal greets her, but she coldly replies she doesn't remember becoming his friend. Catal then questions her about the priestess and the inquisitor, intrigued, asks if there's an issue with Colosia's servant. Beside the inquisitor, Catal approaches and greets the captain of the guards, saying with a smile that they meet again. The guard captain welcomes all participants who accepted the request, formalizing the mission's commencement. Catal observes everyone gathered, thinking to himself that the situation closely resembles the start of a raid. The inquisitor's red eye twitches, revealing her tension as she senses Catal's presence and prepares to speak of the prophecy. Catal crosses his arms confidently, leaving the inquisitor visibly surprised and shocked by his relaxed demeanor regarding such a serious matter. The inquisitor explains that, according to her god, a great evil approaches. Though she doesn't know the exact time, it could be something as simple as a village losing contact. With a scornful smile, Catal reacts to the prophecy, pondering the arrival of a great evil with amused interest instead of fear. Catal's group finally reaches their destination, their firm steps leading them to the entrance of an unknown village. A uniformed guard confirms to their group that they are at the village entrance, preparing for what they will find inside. The Inquisitor of Deus Sol is questioned by a knight and responds that, strangely, she can feel absolutely nothing in the area. One of the guards calls the captain's attention to an abandoned meal, exclaiming in surprise, "Captain, over here, food!" Upon inspecting the food, the captain realizes, shocked, that it was prepared recently, as it's still warm. A guard observes the steaming soup, confused, as contact with the village was lost several days ago. It's reported that many people were sent to investigate the village, but all encountered the same desolate and unanswered mystery. A guard asks for any traces, but his companion reports there's no sign the inhabitants fled or hid. Upon finding more guards, Catal and his group realize the situation repeats everywhere, with the village completely empty. Captain Lucento Adenheimer approaches the group and questions a woman, asking if she knows anything about the whereabouts they seek. Catal reports he found no traces nor felt any presence, thinking to himself how maddening the situation is. Shocked by a revelation, the knight Lucento stammers and asks what Catal meant, wondering if there's another enemy nearby. Observing from afar, a mysterious blonde woman smiles at the scene and finds the whole situation very interesting. Catal goes on alert as a stranger approaches, commenting on her sudden and unexpected appearance in the area. The woman smiles at the Inquisitor, stating that her presence is something even an Inquisitor of Deus Sol couldn't perceive. With a furious expression, the Inquisitor of Deus Sol admits to herself that she can feel absolutely nothing, utterly frustrated. The Inquisitor realizes her divine power doesn't detect the presence, concluding it's either not a demon or one of impossibly high level. Suddenly, an enormous demonic claw emerges, lunging towards a surprised Catal to initiate the attack. The demon Asidiar fully reveals herself, declaring with a maniacal smile that she will drag Catal to hell as her slave. The demon Ascetior manifests an immense sphere of purple energy, hovering over her enemies with overwhelming power. Seeing the impending destruction, a desperate guard shouts for everyone to flee Ascetiar's attack as fast as possible. A soldier cries "No!" in despair, clenching his fist in helplessness as the sphere of energy descends upon them. The demon Ascetiar emerges from a portal with a confident smile, declaring that no one will escape her dominion. With a predatory gaze, Ascetiar stares at the group and informs them that, to her, they are all her new prey. Shocked, the priestess questions if it's truly a demon, and Catal confirms it's a powerful one, with a name. The priestess prays in panic, begging Lord Colossia to save her as dark energy manifests around her. Catal tries to calm the priestess, placing a hand on her head and assuring her he's by her side to protect her. With arms crossed, Catal questions what it means for a demon to have a name, leaving the priestess perplexed by the question. A voice explains that true demons are born from darkness without parents, and by their own will claim a name for themselves. Beside the priestess, Catal crosses his arms and confirms her suspicions with a simple, "Yes, that's right." The priestess recognizes the silhouette as Ascetiar, a demon from centuries past, and wonders why she would appear now. The priestess explains this is the demon's territory and the barrier will only fall if it is defeated. Catal calmly says, "I see," as he touches the energy barrier, assessing the situation with ease. To the priestess's confusion, Catal begins to laugh hysterically, excited by the challenge of facing the demon. The inquisitor realizes the trick, but Ascetiar appears before her. The demon confronts her, questioning if her deduction truly matters now. As Ascetiar smiles maliciously, the inquisitor calls her vile, realizing the trick was merely to toy with people. Under a blood moon, the inquisitor questions how she descended to the world. Ascetiar responds with disdain, refusing to reveal her secret. The inquisitor of the sun god rages, declaring that the filth of evil dares to profane the sacred land. An ancient chronicle reveals the victory of gods and humans, which resulted in the banishment of evil from this world. In response to this story, Ascetiar displays a wide, menacing smile, revealing her sharp demon teeth. Ascetiar, the demon of gravity, reveals her full form, promising to wash away the disgrace of the past and stain the world with evil. The Inquisitor of the Sun. God glares at her with fury, declaring she is a vile creature and that this world belongs only to the gods. As the Inquisitor is enveloped by divine light, Catal observes, thinking that such immense power doesn't belong to a mere human. Ascetiar blocks the attack, finding the fight interesting. She prepares a counterattack, calling her opponent an insolent thing for daring to face her. Undeterred, the Sun God Inquisitor plunges from the sky, her body enveloped in a golden aura, ready to deliver a divine blow. The two opposing forces violently collide, and the clash between sacred power and demonic energy creates a devastating explosion. Ascetiar attacks a woman, but the Sun God Inquisitor intervenes, blocking the blow with her golden energy to protect her. Ascetiar provokes the Inquisitor, questioning if a hound like her understands the dignity a battle should possess. In response to the provocation, the Inquisitor stomps forcefully on the ground, cracking the earth with her sacred energy as a display of power. Enveloped in a golden aura, the Sun God Inquisitor advances to strike a powerful blow against her enemy. The demon Ascetiar responds by unleashing her own dark energy, preparing for the imminent impact with her axe. Ascetiar easily evades and grabs the Inquisitor's arm, who thinks in shock, "What?" surprised by her strength. The demon Ascetiar plunges with overwhelming energy, violently colliding with the Inquisitor and shattering the ground with the impact of her power. With a fierce smile, Ascetiar presses her attack, forcing the Inquisitor to defend with her golden shield against the dark energy. The Inquisitor grunts in pain, feeling the immense pressure of Ascetiar's attack as she struggles to keep her shield raised and not yield. The Sun God Inquisitor recites sacred scriptures, conjuring a barrier of golden light against Ascetiar's demonic assault. Ascetiar's power collides with the divine shield, but the Inquisitor's sacred force repels her with a blinding flash of light. Ascetiar recomposes herself, surprised by the young Inquisitor's skill, and thinks, to be able to read sacred scriptures at her age. The demon Ascetiar licks her lips, admitting her surprise at the power manifesting before her. The Sun God Inquisitor raises her staff, unleashing what she describes as a magnificent aura to purify evil. Enveloped in sacred energy, the Inquisitor launches a devastating attack to incinerate her demonic target. The Sun God Inquisitor advances with her golden aura, while the demon Ascetiar flies towards her for the imminent confrontation. The weapons of the Inquisitor and Ascetiar violently collide, creating an explosion of sacred and demonic energy that illuminates the area. With a confident smile, A Setiar launches a projectile of dark energy, forcing the Inquisitor to defend against the powerful attack. The Inquisitor and the demon Asatyr confront each other, their blades locked in a stalemate of divine and dark power, with Asatyr's wicked smile. As the battle intensifies, Asatyr's power torments the surrounding people, who desperately scream for help amidst the chaos. The Sun God Inquisitor does not retreat, channeling her golden energy to repel Asatyr's malevolent and overwhelming aura in a brutal clash. Catal smiles, admiring the power on display before him, and declares the scene is simply magnificent. The priestess approaches him hopefully, and Catal responds that he supposes he could help with the situation. However, his expression changes and he coldly asks why he should interfere and ruin the fight. A burst of golden and purple energy marks the start of the confrontation, as opposing forces clash with devastating power. The Sun God Inquisitor and the demon Asatyr face off mid-air, their weapons and auras colliding in a fierce combat. Both are thrown back by the force of the impact, preparing for their next move in their struggle for absolute power. The Sun God Inquisitor descends with a divine attack, forcing the demon Asatyr to defend against a crushing blow. As the Inquisitor presses on, it becomes clear that this is a bad match, as demonic beings cannot oppose divine power. Engulfed in energy, Asatyr decides that, to win this long battle, she will have to use a special method to secure victory. With an evil grin, the demon Asatyr launches a fierce attack, engulfing everything with her dark and powerful aura. Surrounded by the overwhelming energy, the adventurers realize too late the approaching danger, sensing a mortal threat. Suddenly, a figure in golden armor emerges, shielding a fallen adventurer and repelling the dark energy with its light. The demon Asatyr and the Sun God Inquisitor collide in an explosion of power, unleashing purple and golden energy rays across the field. The force of the impact is so great that it hurls nearby soldiers, who scream in agony as they are thrown far from the fight. The Inquisitor strains, gritting her teeth to contain the overwhelming force of Asatyr's blow, visibly at a disadvantage. Engulfed in golden power, the Sun God Inquisitor faces her adversary and calls her an unclean creature, preparing for combat. The demon Asatyr lunges towards the Inquisitor with her spear in hand, displaying a wild and confident smile in her attack. Asatyr mocks her opponent, asking if she expected a demon to fight fairly, which further enrages the Inquisitor. The Sun God Inquisitor creates a barrier of golden light and orders everyone to enter it for protection. With a cruel smile, the demon Asatyr laughs at the situation, baring her sharp teeth as she observes her enemy's despair. Asatyr observes the rescue and wonders if it is truly right to use the sacred scripture in such a defensive manner. Engulfed in an explosion of sacred power, the Sun God Inquisitor furiously yells at her enemy to shut up at once. Seeing the reaction, the demon Asatyr maliciously smiles and says, "Yes, this is much better," relishing the battle's intensity. Propelled by her own dark energy, Asatyr shoots towards the Inquisitor with a wild grin, ready for a counterattack. With her eyes glowing golden, the Sun God Inquisitor activates a sacred talisman, channeling immense power for her devastating attack. Asatyr suddenly appears before the Inquisitor, who is shocked by the swift approach and the demon's menacing smile on her face. Mid-combat, Asatyr makes an enigmatic proposal as she retreats, saying, "But if you defeat me and return?" The demon Asatyr proposes an alliance, suggesting the Inquisitor destroy the sacred ground to increase her god's influence. With a taunting smile, Asatyr questions the Inquisitor's resolve, asking if she plans to die in that place. Rejecting the offer, the Inquisitor du Deus Sol draws her gleaming sword, preparing for the imminent combat. Asatyr accepts the decision with a cruel smile, sentencing the sacred warrior and declaring she will die a martyr. The Inquisitor du Deus Sol groans in pain, barely sustaining her golden barrier against the intense demonic energy attack. As Asatyr floats amidst her dark aura, Catal watches the scene with glowing eyes, analyzing the opponent's power. The Inquisitor faces the vortex of dark energy forming above her, bracing for the impact of the powerful magic. Enveloped in a dark aura and chains, Catal advances with a maniacal smile against the Inquisitor, ready for a devastating attack. The Inquisitor du Deus Sol uses her golden weapon to defend against the energy blast, being pushed back by the force. Shocked by her opponent's overwhelming power, the Inquisitor can barely believe the strength she just witnessed. The demon Asatyr advances with a dark aura, launching a swift and powerful attack against her opponent. The Inquisitor braces for impact, raising her golden shield as the rings of dark energy close in. Fighting the pressure, the Inquisitor believes her radiant sanctuary has the power to nullify the darkness. Asatyr attacks the Inquisitor, declaring she's tired of her god's scriptures as she overwhelms her with demonic force. The Inquisitor defends, conjuring a sacred shield to block Asatyr's relentless advance, resulting in an explosive impact. With a sadistic smile, Asetiar intensifies her power, beginning to crack the Inquisitor's divine barrier, who struggles to resist. The Inquisitor screams as Asetiar's attack strikes her forcefully, shattering her defenses with a cracking sound and throwing her back. Asetiar floats, accumulating immense demonic energy that swirls around her, preparing her next devastating attack against the Inquisitor. The dark energy explodes into a pillar, trapping the Inquisitor du Deus Sol, who finds herself completely subjugated by the demon's overwhelming power. The Inquisitor du Deus Sol screams in pain as she is enveloped and restrained by dark demonic energy and chains. The demon Asetiar appears with a sadistic smile, declaring she will devour everyone there as her dessert. Asetiar grabs the Inquisitor from behind, loudly questioning what a noble servant of a god would taste like. Just as Asetiar is about to bite the Inquisitor, a hand emerges and forcefully stops her, gripping her jaw. Catal reveals himself, holding Asetiar to protect the Inquisitor and firmly declaring, "Enough," to everyone's surprise. Without hesitation, Catal demonstrates his superior strength by violently throwing Asetiar away with a single powerful move. After a devastating attack, Catal emerges and offers help to the fallen Inquisitor, calmly asking if she's all right. The Inquisitor recognizes him as the Transcendent who defeated Swordmaster Cain, shocked by his presence amidst the chaos. The demon Asetiar reveals herself, confronting Catal and accusing him of being an insolent barbarian for interfering with her meal. Annoyed by his resistance, Asetiar threatens Catal, saying she had considered at least keeping him alive as her toy. Catal responds calmly, stating that he has no intention of becoming anyone's toy. Challenged, Asetiar questions his refusal and advances with a powerful dark energy attack, which collides with Catal's defense. Enveloped by a dark aura, the demon Asetiar smiles menacingly and sentences her opponent. "I suppose you'll have to die." The Sun God Inquisitor appears in her spiritual form, firmly warning Catal, "You cannot defeat this." Catal replies that he is very strong, but the Inquisitor denies it, explaining that physical strength doesn't matter in this fight. She reveals the truth behind the confrontation, stating that only divine power can banish a demon from this world. The Sun God Inquisitor stares at the magic circle, declaring that it is the demon's territory where not even a miracle can occur. Though her body trembles from weakness, she clings to her conviction, stating that, as a servant of her god, it is her duty to act. Raising her staff which glows with divine power, the Inquisitor vows to purify that place of all the evil consuming it. The Sun God Inquisitor feels dizzy and overwhelmed, barely able to face the overwhelming presence before her. Catal is impressed by the Inquisitor's divine will, questioning if this is what it means to serve a god. With a confident smile, Catal reveals that he has been looking forward to fighting a demon for some time. The demon Asetiar smiles disdainfully, telling Catal that he doesn't understand the situation and that it's impossible to defeat her. Catal is caught by surprise and dragged into a vortex of dark energy that opens beneath his feet, pulling him down. The demon Asetiar is violently struck by a powerful blow, being thrown back by the overwhelming impact of Catal's attack. The Inquisitor watches in shock, unable to believe that Catal crushed the demon's skull with a single punch, questioning if such a feat is possible. Catal's fist strikes the demon again with brutal force, causing a devastating impact that shakes its entire body. As Asetiar regenerates, she questions Catal's true nature, who comments with a smile on her incredible recovery ability. Catal replies casually, striking a silly pose, stating that he is nothing more than a simple barbarian. Asetiar realizes he uses neither aura nor magic, and her expression turns menacing as she understands the true nature of his strength. A mysterious purple portal opens before Catal, crackling with sinister energy as he cautiously observes the anomaly. The demon Asetiar emerges and lunges to attack, ordering Catal to die. He, however, faces her with a confident smile. With a single hand, Catal stops Asetiar's punch. She is shocked to see her powerful attack completely neutralized. Catal delivers a vertical blow with overwhelming force, making Asetiar scream as she is directly hit by the devastating attack. Asetiar crosses her arms to block the attack, but the clash of power generates a massive explosion of purple energy. Catal's blow proves too strong, violently slamming Asetiar into the ground, which shatters upon impact. Asetiar is thrown back, incredulous at the attack's power, thinking it impossible. Catal smiles, noting that even though it was just a punch, the demon's body immediately regenerates. Without hesitation, Catal stomps the ground, shattering it to propel his next attack. With a dark aura crackling on his arm, Catal prepares a powerful strike, focusing all his strength for the imminent attack. In a swift move, Catal delivers a direct punch to Asetiar's face, who is caught off guard by the attack's speed. Without respite, Catal lands another overwhelming punch on Asetiar, striking her with crushing force that sends her downward. Enveloped in an explosion of dark energy, a satyr regenerates her body, revealing her complete demonic form with overwhelming power. Observing the transformation, Catal lets out a ho of amusement, appearing completely indifferent to his opponent's display of power. Catal deduces that the demon's head regenerates and questions if the core is located there, analyzing a satyr's ferocity. A satyr, in her demonic form, mocks Catal, questioning if he truly believes he can defeat her with brute force alone. She continues to taunt, asking if Catal dares to face her with nothing but brute force, but he stares impassively. Catal scoffs at a satyr's power, saying it doesn't seem so impressive, which utterly shatters the shocked demon's pride. With a furious roar, a satyr plunges towards Catal, enveloped in a crackling aura of dark demonic energy. She descends from the heavens with her hammer in hand, preparing a devastating blow to crush her target awaiting her on the ground. With a sadistic smile, a satyr closes in for the impact, while Catal, surprised, braces for the imminent attack. With a determined gaze, Catal crushes a large mana crystal in his hand, preparing to unleash immense power against his opponent. Catal delivers an overwhelming overhead strike, violently slamming a satyr into the ground with an explosion of golden energy. Incredulous at his power, a satyr recovers, enveloped in a dark aura, and furiously declares, "I am the demon of heaviness." Catal questions the demon's immortality, and a satyr responds furiously, accumulating dark energy and screaming that he will never succeed. A satyr unleashes her power in a massive attack, screaming for the barbarian to die as the dark energy surges to consume him. In response, a pillar of golden light erupts from Catal, piercing the darkness and directly clashing with the demon's attack. The Inquisitor wonders what she's witnessing, as the tale of a satyr, the demon who destroyed a kingdom, is recounted. The Inquisitor is shocked to see Catal effortlessly pummeling the mighty demon Asetiar with just his bare fists. Asetiar is restrained by a dark force, completely immobilized and defeated by Catal's overwhelming power. Subdued by overwhelming pressure, Asetiar confronts her opponent, questioning his true identity, sensing unparalleled power. With surprising calm, Catal introduces himself, claiming to be merely a simple barbarian to the subdued demon. With a mocking smile, Asetiar scoffs at Catal's response, finding his claim of being a barbarian utterly laughable. Catal is startled as a blade of purple energy whizzes past him, cutting through the air with overwhelming and unexpected force. He watches intently as dark energy condenses in the air, swirling into menacing spirals directly above his head. The purple energy begins to crackle and fizz, as an incredulous voice exclaims, "It can't be!" sensing the power to come. Exploding in a flash of light, the demon Asetiar reveals her winged form, unleashing an overwhelming wave of power onto the battlefield. Catal smiles confidently as he feels the energy flow through his body, finally understanding that this is demonic power. The Sun God's Inquisitor realizes she cannot defeat him with physical strength and focuses all her sacred energy for an attack. With a cruel smile, Catal commands his dark power, ordering demonic spikes to attack and annihilate his opponent. Enveloped in demonic energy, Catal is caught off guard by Asetiar's sudden attack, forcing him into a defensive stance. In response, Catal unleashes a flurry of blows, creating a tempest of blue energy blades to repel the demon's offensive. Enveloped in a dark aura, Catal spins with glowing eyes, preparing a powerful counterattack to turn the tide against Asetiar. Catal is surprised as he channels divine power into his axe, questioning if this is truly the strength of a god. The Inquisitor shouts that they've gathered divine power for him, ordering him to deliver the final blow right now. Asetiar stares in shock at the sacred axe, unable to comprehend what is unfolding before her. Catal strikes Asetiar with a devastating punch, engulfing her in an explosion of dark and purple energy. With his eye glowing, Catal realizes the true nature of the power he wielded, thinking, "So this is it." Asetiar lies defeated in a crater, her body still crackling with the dark energy of Catal's strike. As she's dragged back to hell, Asetiar laughs, saying it was worth it to confirm that barbarians exist in the upper world. The demon asks his name before disappearing, and the warrior firmly replies, revealing himself to be Catal. With a maniacal laugh, Asetiar prepares to make an announcement, summoning all who dwell in hell to hear her. Her voice echoes over an infernal castle, commanding all to forever remember the name of the barbarian Catal. The Sun God Inquisitor screams in agony, overwhelmed and disintegrated by an all-consuming dark energy. A being known as Petal emerges as a whirlwind of eyes, commanded to devour memories, as Catal watches. The demon Asetiar appears and, with an evil grin, declares that from this moment Catal belongs to them. The Inquisitor and the priestess gape, utterly shocked by the scene they just witnessed. With a confident smirk, Catal stretches, dispersing the remnants of dark energy as if it were nothing. A newsboy runs, shouting, "Urgent news! It's about the village with which we lost all communication." Lord Akasha reacts in panic, learning that besides the Lich, a named demon has appeared, questioning how the city can withstand such calamities. Catal suggests the Inquisitor rest, but she refuses, stating she must report the events to the Holy Land without hesitation. The Inquisitor thanks Catal for saving her life, acknowledging that without his help, she would have become a toy for the demon. Surprised by Catal's demeanor, the Inquisitor says there's no need for thanks, holding her sun amulet. She reveals herself as a heretic Inquisitor, but Catal sees no issue, asking why they couldn't be friends. Faced with Catal's indifferent acceptance, the Sun God Inquisitor cannot suppress a slight smile. With a serious expression, the Inquisitor reveals to Catal that the cause of the phenomenon he questions is something called the Mark. She clenches her fist firmly, demonstrating the gravity of the situation as she prepares to explain the consequences of this mark. Confused by the situation, Catal places a hand on his chin and wonders aloud if he too has been marked. The Inquisitor reassures him, explaining that although his enemies know who he is, they lack the ability to pursue him without the mark. She reveals that, in the past, beings from another dimension crossed into the world and began to mercilessly slaughter humanity. The Inquisitor observes that, over time, demons began to interfere in the human realm again, breaking the peace that had been established. Worried, the Sun God Inquisitor doubts, asserting to herself that a named demon could not appear so easily in the world. She concludes that the demonic realm, which should be sealed, is affecting the world, causing irregular dungeon formation and the emergence of evil. The Sun God Inquisitor travels in her carriage, sitting silently as the vehicle moves along a dirt road. With a serious look, Cain tells someone that they seem to have gone through quite a difficult time, showing his keen perception. Cain, the master swordsman, turns abruptly, surprised to find a mysterious figure awaiting him in the hallway. The dark-haired man states he's there for a routine report, and Cain, in turn, questions his presence. He then interrogates Cain about a reconnaissance mission in the demonic realm, the feared Forest of Silence. The Lord in Red smiles with interest, agreeing that the demon realm is a mysterious and fascinating place, despite its dangers. With a snap of his fingers, he activates an immense spatial magic circle, transporting himself and Cain to another dimension. Caught off guard, Cain questions what's happening as he finds himself trapped by powerful, sudden spatial magic. An imposing figure emerges amid a blue aura, calmly stating there's no need for alarm. Cain watches the newcomer in awe, beginning to fear the worst as he suspects who it is. As the man smiles, Cain realizes in horror that his eye of observation has been discovered, cursing the situation. Amidst a magical aura, Swordmaster Cain questions his interlocutor, stating that if he's already seen everything, there's nothing left to ask. Cain is shocked by the revelation that Cardos was defeated, and the mysterious man confirms, asking if he wasn't aware of the feat. The man explains that, though not public, rumors of the defeat are already slowly spreading within the tower. Before an ethereal light, Cain reveals he came to pay his respects, setting a solemn tone for the conversation. The Lich Cartos appears holding a shining crystal, asserting the importance of friends but hinting that something is missing. Cain directly questions Cardos about his recovered artifacts, receiving an evasive reply that most were found. Cain ponders Catal's capabilities, murmuring that if it's about that barbarian, then perhaps it's possible. Cardos, the Lich, notices Cain's omission, noting that the Emperor has not yet been informed of the situation. Cain foresees an inevitable conflict, fearing that if the Emperor discovers Catal, their battle will engulf the entire Empire. The Lich Cardos questions Cain if he truly believes the barbarian Catal can face the Empire alone. Cain admits he doesn't know, but confesses that upon seeing Catal, he felt something familiar and incredibly powerful. As he listens, Cardos smiles and concludes in thought that Catal would be an invaluable asset to his plans. In a bustling market, a woman is startled to encounter Catal's imposing figure, who suddenly appears in her path. Completely stunned, the woman can barely process the situation, questioning, before the barbarian's intimidating and unexpected presence. In a swift and surprising move, Catal grabs the woman's arm, holding her firmly with his gloved hand before she can react. Catal steadies a woman who stumbled and, with a smile, asks if she's all right, leaving her speechless. The woman remains in shock, completely surprised by the sudden encounter with the imposing barbarian who helped her. To Catal's surprise, expecting her to flee, the woman bows and politely thanks him for his help. Walking through a market, Catal feels a strange sensation looking at a woman, questioning what is happening to him. In a luxurious room, Lord Akasha asks Catal if he's better, mentioning he heard Catal was almost marked by the demon. Indifferently, Catal replies he's fine, stating he doesn't even know what this mark the Lord mentioned is. Casually seated in the library, Catal asks Lord Akasha about the general situation of the estate. Catal crosses his arms and clarifies that his concern is for the people living in those lands. With a worried expression, Lord Akasha explains that the tense situation is a result of the widespread rumors. It's revealed Catal became known for fighting alongside Aquas, making people believe she granted him divine power. Hearing the story, Catal crosses his arms, finally understanding the origin of the misunderstanding that made him a hero. Lord Akasha apologizes, explaining that when he tried to correct the story, rumors about Catal had already spread too far. Catal reflects on his new title, Enemy of Demons, pondering the fame it will bring him on his new path. A guild receptionist enthusiastically announces Catal's promotion. "Congratulations! You're now rank C," she cheers. Visibly surprised by the news, Catal processes having reached rank C so quickly on his journey. Catal is shocked his rank jumped 3 levels, but the guild receptionist confirms he certainly deserved the promotion. He's surprised to learn he'll receive a personalized ID, special treatment for true mercenaries from rank C onwards. The receptionist reveals the Imperial capital is a mystery, with less information available than about the demon realm itself. The receptionist congratulates Catal, explaining that as rank C he can accept almost any mission, even rank A dungeons with a group. Catal smiles, excited by the prospect of facing rank A dungeons and taking on a wider variety of missions now available to him. While drinking with his group, Catal confirms to Alessandro that the demon was defeated and the inquisitor declared no more problems. The priestess observes Catal, sweating coldly and thinking his humble, cold demeanor can't be that of an ordinary human. Kazan awkwardly smiles at Catal, explaining that as rank F mercenaries, there's not much the group can do yet. Kazan declares he wants to live life to the fullest, inspired by Catal, but Alessandro scorns him, calling him scum for only thinking of it now. As Kazan and Alessandro glare angrily at each other, Catal, surprised in the middle, asks what their plans are for the future. The priestess panics, questioning if Catal already knows everything and is just waiting for her to confess, or if he's toying with her. The receptionist Rosa organizes her papers, smiling as she thinks her shift is over and it's finally time to go home. Her joy vanishes as she spots an unexpected figure, her face filling with shock as she exclaims, "It can't be!" An elderly hooded man approaches the guild counter, requesting to post a mission. Elena's attendant specifies the mission is an escort for 2, himself and a young woman. He then reveals the shocking destination, the capital of the Denian kingdom, startling the guild receptionist. The receptionist scrutinizes the hooded man, deducing from his robe that he must be concealing his true identity. She agrees to register the request, but immediately demands proof of his identity before proceeding. The man then places a silver plaque on the table, confidently asserting it should suffice as proof of his identity. The receptionist's eyes widen in surprise as she identifies Catal's item, thinking, "Wait, this is..." A bead of sweat trickling down, she nervously concludes he's far from a commoner. Catal sets the metal plaque on the wooden table as his identity is finally confirmed. Rosa offers a single gold coin to hire a mercenary, shocking Elene's attendant with the mission's proposed fee. Incredulous, the attendant questions aloud if such a meager payment is for only one escort. Rosa reflects that hiring a mercenary as a personal guard isn't cheap, given the dangers in the Denian kingdom. Cain pleads to hire at least 2, but the receptionist informs him that those mercenaries would be of a lower caliber. Disappointed with the options, Cain concludes that hiring only 1 mercenary is the most reasonable decision he can make now. The guild receptionist laments the difficulty of finding mercenaries on the frontier, deeming hiring 2 almost impossible. Inspecting the gold coins, she notes they are rustic yet high purity, concluding her new client is troublesome. Later that night, the mysterious client, Catal, approaches a wooden door and knocks, ready to begin his mission. Princess Elene opens the door for her attendant, Aaron, inviting him in, visibly apprehensive. With a worried expression, Elene turns to him, anxiously asking for his mission's outcome. Aaron informs Elene the commission was approved, bringing news that could change everything. With a worried expression, Princess Elene questions her attendant about the supplies, asking if only 1 remains. The attendant apologizes for the low reserves, but Elene reassures him, stating it's not his fault. Elena blames herself for being deceived, but her attendant comforts her, saying the situation was inevitable. With a grim expression, Elena's attendant agrees with his lady, appearing utterly disheartened. Princess Elene becomes visibly nervous and speechless, reacting with concern to her servant's demeanor. Surprised, the attendant looks at Princess Elene, who holds his arm, insisting it's not his fault. Princess Elene, with an apprehensive look, states they cannot take more risks, as even asking for help could be dangerous. Her attendant explains that distrust is necessary, as they could no longer distinguish allies from enemies. While he admits his resolve has weakened, Elene questions if the distant Denian kingdom will truly be a safe haven. Elene's attendant assures her she will be protected, citing an oath sworn by the king of Denian on the day of her birth. He adds that the protectors might even aid in her vengeance, offering the princess new hope. With a clenched fist, Princess Elene confronts her destiny, aware that her kingdom's future rests in her hands. At the guild, Catal reviews a new job offer and questions the receptionist about a seemingly simple escort mission. He asks if those are all the details, and Rosa confirms, but warns the journey will take several days at least. Rosa expresses her distrust, but Catal smiles, stating that the mission's suspicious nature is precisely what makes it interesting. Catal reads the document and recognizes the name Milena of House Akasha, who watches him with an enigmatic smile. With a confident smile, Catal slams his hand on the counter, declaring he will accept the request without hesitation. However, upon seeing the mission details, Catal is shocked, and a dark aura envelops him, frightening the receptionist. The door bursts open, and Princess Elene turns, confused by the sudden and violent interruption. Elene's attendant rises, announcing with surprise that the territory's only rank C mercenary has accepted their request. Princess Elene beams at the news, asking if it's true that a rank C mercenary will finally help them. In his room, Catal thoughtfully analyzes the details of his next task on a holographic screen. Princess Elene is visibly surprised to hear that the person she was expecting has finally arrived at the inn. The official grows annoyed by the hesitation and offers to cancel the contract, to the despair of Elene's attendant, who insists that's not their intention. After Catal intervenes and accepts the job, Princess Elene and her attendant react with clumsy joy, completely relieved by the success. Catal announces they will spend the night there, leaving Princess Elene utterly shocked and nervous by the sudden change of plans. He justifies that it's too late to travel, blaming Elene for insisting on leaving at dusk, which leaves her speechless. Suddenly, Catal uses a magic item to instantly erect a tent with a golden glow, setting up camp in seconds. Princess Elene and her attendant are shocked to see Catal's camp, questioning how a barbarian could possess such a powerful artifact. Completely astonished by the revelation, Elene and her servant are speechless before the unexpected power Catal demonstrated. Princess Elene wakes with dark circles under her eyes, thinking she's exhausted from not getting any sleep throughout the night. She then observes her attendant, Aaron, equally exhausted, realizing that fatigue has affected everyone in the camp. With renewed determination, Elene says she can't blame them for skipping meals and asks them to wait a moment. Catal surprises Princess Elene by offering to cook for her, leaving her utterly confused by the unexpected proposal. With precise movements, Catal prepares the meal, adding ingredients to the pot as Princess Elene watches in silent astonishment. Princess Elene watches Catal cook over the fire, questioning in her thoughts how a barbarian could possess such culinary skill. Confidently, Catal reflects that, after learning to cook in icy lands, preparing a meal here seems far too easy for him. Catal announces the food is ready, presenting a pasta dish that leaves Princess Elene and her attendant completely shocked. Princess Elene politely declines, saying she dislikes greasy food, while her attendant tries to smooth over the situation. The attendant also declines, and Catal, not understanding, asks if they prefer dried meat, since they rejected his elaborate dish. Catal prepares a hearty feast of meat and fish over the bonfire, and the aroma attracts the attention of two eagerly watching elf children. The smell of the meal is so irresistible that Princess Elene and her attendant cannot control their hunger, drooling in anticipation of the food. Princess Elene and her attendant feel their stomachs churn, grimacing in pain as they try to conceal their discomfort. With a groan of "ugh," the attendant is startled to see Elene suddenly stand up, clearly with urgency. A guard asks if she's going to the bathroom, and Elene, sweating coldly, indignantly replies, "How rude." Catal grills meat over the bonfire for the group, while Elene's attendant watches him in suspicious silence from a distance. As he cuts the meat, Catal asks for a little faith, reminding the attendant that, as his human bodyguard, he too can get hurt. Touched by Catal's kindness, Elene's attendant retreats to a stream, where he cries alone, overcome by the emotion of the moment. Exhausted, Princess Elene stops by the river to eat, admitting to herself that she's too hungry to continue the journey. The strain of the journey takes its toll, and Elene cries as she eats, lamenting that her legs ache too much to move forward. Despite the suffering, Elene composes herself and continues her solitary journey, thinking to herself that she needs to hold on and keep going. Princess Elene hides behind bushes, completely shocked by the scene unfolding before her. With an expression of desolation, Elene whispers her attendant's name, Aaron, upon seeing him eat with the barbarian. Elene confronts her attendant, grabbing him and furiously questioning if the situation is merely a misunderstanding. As Elene and her attendant converse, Catal silently appears behind her, making her turn around startled by his sudden presence. Catal confronts them, stating that their insistence on separate night watches is due to their distrust in him, leaving them in a panic. Looking at the imposing Catal, Princess Elene interrupts him, asserting there's one thing he's mistaken about. With a confident smile, Catal stares at the princess, his intense expression suggesting there's more to his story than meets the eye. He declares he is not a barbarian, leaving Princess Elene and her attendant utterly shocked and speechless by the statement. The princess's attendant is perplexed, stammering in confusion, unable to process Catal's unexpected revelation about his origin. Catal recounts a tragic story about his tribe being exterminated and his adoption, but soon reveals he made it all up. Princess Elene and her attendant react with concern to the story, but Catal insists his origin doesn't matter to the situation. Elena reflects on her people, who despite being good and kind, have suffered from prejudice and marginalization their entire lives. Princess Elene's attendant apologizes to Catal, sincerely admitting he has only now truly come to trust him. Ashamed for having doubted, the attendant watches Catal extend his hand, stating he will count on them from now on. Hidden in the shadows, the Lich observes the group, noting how close they've become as a sinister energy envelops him. Catal reflects, finding it strange that he seems more civilized than the barbarians living outside the snowfield. A man observes him from afar and decides to move closer to investigate the mysterious barbarian. As the observer moves, Catal stares directly at him. The man is shocked to realize their gazes have met. Princess Elene grows confused when Catal suddenly stops and asks what's happening, sensing the tension in the air. Catal warns. There's someone nearby and asks Elene to wait, departing at high speed to confront the danger. Catal intercepts and instantly takes down an assassin, who falls to the ground in shock, not understanding how he was defeated. A sudden explosion echoes through the forest, leaving Alessandro Tyrannus paralyzed with surprise at the power he'd just witnessed. Catal dominates Alessandro, who lies on the cracked ground, establishing his total dominance after their brief confrontation. Alessandro's sudden declaration of admiration catches Catal by surprise, leaving him visibly confused by the change in attitude. Catal confirms he's speaking to the fallen man, who reacts in shock. He doesn't understand why he's being chosen. Catal lifts the inert man by his collar and presents him to the group, who watch the scene in silence and with unease. A tear rolls down his face as he wonders if Cain, whom he resembles, was also like this. Princess Elene, surprised to see Catal holding a stranger by his cloak, asks who he is. The young adventurer explains he always wanted to meet a strong adventurer, leaving Elene utterly confused by the situation. He reveals with admiration that Catal became his idol after helping an inquisitor kill a demon. Shocked, the young adventurer questions if he was followed out of admiration, breaking into a cold sweat upon realizing the strange situation he'd gotten himself into. With an awkward smile, he confesses he acted on impulse, saying, "I admire you so much I acted without thinking." Suddenly, the young man finds himself tied up and confused, as it's revealed he had been prepared beforehand for a trap. Catal tightens a rope with a satisfied smile, stating that this should be enough for what he plans. As he walks, a man observes Princess Elene and thinks it's the first time she finds herself in such a state. Tied up, the prisoner continues his thoughts, resigned to the humiliating situation he finds himself in. Tied up, Cain stares at Catal with an intense gaze, thinking he can finally watch him closely. As they walk through the forest, Cain reflects that the words he needs to say are difficult to accept. Catal stops walking and turns, finally confronting Cain and asking if he intends to speak. Catal surprises Princess Elene, questioning if she already knew about the plan to depart secretly to avoid being seen. Showing understanding, Catal listens as Elene apologizes for her silence and promises to explain the entire situation. With determination, Elene says Catal must warn her if he can no longer fulfill the request after hearing the full story. Catal senses a presence and warns Princess Elene that an unwanted visitor is approaching, leaving her surprised and confused. The group spots knights approaching, and Catal informs Princess Elene that it seems they've come to retrieve her. Shocked to see the knights, Princess Elene stares at the scene, whispering to herself that it's impossible. Captain Lucento Adenheimer and his knights emerge, bowing to Princess Elene of the Kingdom of Luton, to everyone's surprise. The captain explains they've searched for a long time and implores the princess to return, as the king is very worried. Catal crosses his arms and challenges the captain, directly questioning why the princess is there if everyone was so worried. Lucento Adenheimer informs the mercenary that the matter now belongs to the knights, but a mysterious voice responds with a firm and defiant, "No." Princess Elene stares at the man before her, suspicious, and directly questions his true identity. "You, who are you?" Elene explodes in anger, denying he is the true captain and accusing him of being a fraud by shouting, "I don't know you." With eyes red with fury, a man demands to know the whereabouts of his family and everyone else. A dark and sinister energy manifests, materializing a knight in full armor who rises, ready to obey. Observing the summoned figure, the bound prisoner is shocked to realize the knight is, in fact, human. With a furious expression, a satyr swears she will never let her enemies get what they want, screaming for them to just watch her. Princess Elene rages, screaming that it's absurd, but Lucento asks her to think rationally about her strange accusations. In the forest, Lucento Adenheimer extends his hand to Princess Elene, insistently asking her to accompany him. Desperate, Princess Elene pleads for help, refusing to believe everything could end this way. Suddenly, a voice surprises her amidst her lament, questioning what she's doing. Captain Lucento orders Catal to step aside, but he refuses, stating he cannot allow it. Lucento Adenheimer orders Catal out of the way, but the barbarian refuses to obey, protecting Princess Elene with a smile. Faced with refusal, Lucento declares he'll be forced to act and advances with a powerful blow to initiate the confrontation. To the knight's surprise, Catal blocks his attack with a single hand, demonstrating his overwhelming strength and catching him off guard. Catal glares at the knights, stating they attacked first and that his duty is to protect his employer, Princess Elene, from any threat. Struck by Catal's force, the knight captain, Lucento, recoils in pain, surprised by the power of the blow he just received. Regaining his breath, Captain Lucento glares at Catal with fury, preparing to question the words and loyalty of the mercenary defying him. Princess Elene reacts with utter disbelief at the sudden appearance of the knights, barely able to process the situation. Catal confronts the knights who surrounded him, questioning how they managed to appear so abruptly and silently. Led by Lucento Adenheimer, the knights remain silent, glaring at Catal with a menacing and imposing presence. Lucento Adenheimer claims to have tracked the princess to the location and is annoyed by what he considers ridiculous accusations. Desolate, Princess Elene laments that no one has ever trusted her words, feeling utterly alone and discredited. Lucento decides the conversation is over and advances with his knights through the forest, declaring there's no more value in talking. With a frightened Princess Elene behind him, Catal steps forward and orders all his allies to retreat from the imminent battle. In response, the enemy knights activate their magical auras and raise their swords, preparing for the attack. Faced with the show of force, Catal merely smirks, thinking how amusing the situation is to him. With agility and brute force, Catal dodges and counterattacks, easily breaking the formation of the knights surrounding him. With eyes glowing with power, Catal concentrates his energy into a single fist, preparing for a devastating blow. The shockwave from his punch is overwhelming, sending the armored knights flying through the air with unstoppable force. Catal is ambushed in the forest, with dozens of knights leaping from the trees to attack him all at once. Despite being at the heart of the assault, Catal remains calm and focused as the knights descend upon him in a coordinated aerial attack. With brute force, Catal intercepts one knight mid-air, using him as an improvised club to strike down another foe. Lucento Adenheimer charges with his gleaming sword, shouting for the beast before him to die. To Lucento's astonishment, Catal stops the deadly blade with his bare teeth, displaying inhuman strength. The knight freezes in shock, unable to process how his powerful attack was so absurdly halted. With superhuman strength, Catal shatters Lucento's steel sword with a single bite, his eyes blazing with pure fury. Lucento is thrown back, stunned to realize he was disarmed and immobilized by his barbaric opponent's teeth alone. The shockwave from Catal's display of power fells all nearby knights, leaving them on their knees, utterly intimidated. Catal emerges into the forest clearing, his expression one of surprise upon finding Princess Elene and her companions in peril. Princess Elene, relieved by his arrival, asks if he's all right. Catal reassures her, confirming he emerged unscathed from the chaos. Facing Catal's demand for answers, Elene agrees, solemnly promising to explain the entire situation in detail. Around the campfire, Catal, Princess Elene, and the others remain in heavy silence, reflecting on the events that just transpired. Elene's attendant recalls that by the time they realized, the kingdom was already in ruins, leading Catal to deduce they fled to survive. Seated by the fire, Catal stares at the attendant, directly asking how he and the princess uncovered the truth behind the ruin. A butler recounts how he amused himself by telling scary stories to the maid Cassie, who was utterly terrified by the ghost tales. Seated by the fire, Catal hears the account of how the child, once gentle and fearful, suddenly stopped fearing death. With a sinister smile and glowing eyes, the girl transformed, and the butler asserts he could no longer recognize her as Cassie. Princess Elene begins to recount that, in the past, a man desired a kingdom solely for humans, seeking power to separate the races. A serious Elene reveals her royal lineage can invoke the Human Declaration, a unique and crucial power for her plan. Catal smiles, finding the world surprising. He approves Elene's strategy to use this power and uncover evidence. Moved, Princess Elene thanks Catal for agreeing to be her guardian, joining her hands in a gesture of gratitude. Elene then makes a bold promise, stating she will grant Catal anything he asks when the mission concludes. Later, around the campfire, Alessandro approaches Catal to seriously discuss the events and plan for the future. With a serious expression, Alessandro addresses Catal directly, seeking his attention for the danger they now face with the new information. He expresses concern, warning that even if the woman speaks truth, the knowledge itself is dangerous, putting them at risk. Seated, Alessandro gesticulates, warning Catal that his enemies will now try to kill him to keep this truth secret. Catal positions himself firmly, his muscular, tense arm revealing the strength he's about to exert in the conversation with his companions. Alessandro's eyes widen in pure shock and confusion, reflecting utter disbelief at the barbarian's words. Catal displays a defiant, self-assured smile, awaiting Alessandro's reaction to his bold, seemingly senseless proposal. Alessandro stares at Catal, questioning if he accepted the mission merely out of contractual obligation, caring for nothing else. In response, Catal says nothing but displays a wide, confident smile, as if the answer were obvious. The unexpected reaction leaves Alessandro perplexed. He sweats, wondering what the barbarian implies with that look. Near the bonfire, Catal observes his prisoner, who ironically deems his situation amusing. The next day, Catal leads his bound prisoner along a forest trail, followed by two elders, continuing their journey. As he walks, the prisoner reveals his dark desire, to dissect Catal piece by piece to understand his strength. The prisoner's face shows nervousness and fear, sweating coldly as he ponders his captor's overwhelming power. Catal calmly catches an arrow midair, demonstrating superhuman reflexes to the shocked man accompanying him. Catal demonstrates overwhelming strength, launching several knights into the air with a single powerful movement, clearing the path instantly. Calling Catal a monster, the surviving knights retreat, abandoning their swords in their hasty escape. Princess Elene is shocked by Catal's strength, finding it incredible he defeated such strong knights. Princess Elene becomes visibly nervous and surprised, witnessing Catal's overwhelming strength. Catal stares at the princess with a firm gaze, unfazed by the recent violence. With an embarrassed expression, Princess Elene tries to disguise her surprise, claiming she understands the situation. As they move away from the broken swords, Catal announces there's something he needs to do. A group of knights surrounds Catal, drawing swords and ordering the barbarian to hand over Princess Elene immediately. Catal watches the approaching knights unfazed, thinking his enemies simply don't stop appearing. In an instant, Catal defeats the knights, holding the leader by the arm while the others lie fallen. Without hesitation, Catal advances and fells one knight with a single blow, who screams in pain upon subjugation. Frightened by the display of power, the remaining knights hastily retreat through the forest, fleeing the confrontation. Watching the guards flee, Catal smiles confidently, satisfied he resolved the situation effortlessly. Princess Elene's attendant expresses concern, stating a solution would require substantial equipment and a full day. The group watches knights reappear from nowhere, realizing the enemies are trapped in a constant reset cycle. With a confident smile, Catal decides there's just one more thing to verify before acting. Catal turns to Princess Elene, explaining he'll leave no enemy alive, shocking her with his brutality. Without hesitation, Catal's axe executes the enemy knight, sealing his bloody fate in the forest. Standing over the body, Catal declares, "Whoever tries to kill him must be prepared to die. No exceptions." The attendant states something will confirm their suspicions as Princess Elene looks ahead, worried. Catal approaches, directly asking Princess Elene if she knew the man, surprising her with his intuition. Visibly shaken, Princess Elene remains silent, unable to hide her anguish and concern. Princess Elene laments Catal's change, but her eyes widen in shock as knights approach. As knights demand the barbarian surrender the princess, Catal positions himself to protect Elene and her group. The princess's attendant reacts with pure horror to the knight's appearance, fearing the imminent confrontation. Princess Elene looks back, completely shocked and apprehensive about her discovery regarding the group. In contrast, Catal smiles confidently, confirming he'd known that truth all along. While preparing soup, a companion mentions Cassie showed no fear of death, even when a statue nearly crushed her. Near the bonfire, Princess Elene seems shaken and shrinks, lost in thoughts of their dangers and recent conversation. Catal silently approaches the princess, offering her a bowl of hot soup, a gesture of care amidst the camp's tension. Princess Elene holds a bowl of hot porridge, preparing to reveal crucial information about their enemies. With a worried look, Elene states that, to her knowledge, such beings don't exist in any known records. Princess Elene, worried, thinks the entity's origin finally makes sense, connecting the dots about their danger. Catal stares at the quest window, questioning if escorting his target to Denian Kingdom is due to this situation. Around the bonfire, Catal listens intently as the group discusses their dangerous journey, maintaining his imposing posture. With a resolute gaze, Princess Elene nods, demonstrating her firm decision to continue the journey alongside Catal. Catal ponders in silence, eyes closed, concentrating to decide his next move. His quiet presence attracts the attention of an adventurer who watches him closely with curiosity. The man stares at him, thinking with conviction, "I'm almost certain it would be him." In a clearing, Catal faces the knights in an attack stance, calmly awaiting their first move to initiate combat. With a confident smile, Catal shows he is not intimidated by the threat, secure in his imminent victory. As he walks away, Catal comments that this is already the third time his enemies have died, revealing the unusual nature of the confrontation. Catal listens to the conversation with a confident smile, appearing calm despite the gravity of the situation the group faces. With a clenched fist, Princess Elene expresses her rage and revulsion, calling her enemies disgusting monsters. As they walk along the road, Catal ponders aloud, stating he is genuinely curious about the monster's true objective. Catal smiles confidently, telling Princess Elene that the situation is not as simple as she thinks. He effortlessly catches 2 arrows mid-air, explaining that the enemies are not trying to take her back alive. Princess Elene's expression turns worried as she hears Catal say they had many chances to kill her. With overwhelming ease, Catal strikes down the knights surrounding him, leaving them incapacitated on the ground in an instant. Princess Elene and her attendant observe the scene, completely shocked and speechless at the display of force. Captain Lucento, now tied up, furiously shouts at Catal, demanding to be released immediately. "You scoundrel! Untie me now!" Catal clasps his hands with a wide smile, preparing to initiate a peculiar conversation with the prisoner they just captured. The tied man stares at him as Catal laments the tragedy of being hostile without knowing what the other side wants. He then declares with a smile that they will have an honest conversation, ignoring the apprehension of others around him. A guard stands paralyzed with fear, eyes wide with shock and confusion at the imminent danger. Tied up, the guard is dragged away, desperately shouting that he is human and not a monster to his accuser. Princess Elene explodes in fury and shouts in response, her rage overflowing against the creature she believes to be before her. Princess Elene's eyes widen in shock and panic as she realizes the terrible situation she is in. "Tied up," a guard pleads with the princess, warning that she is making a terrible mistake by trusting her captors. Elene explodes, demanding not to be treated as crazy and asserting that she had already discovered everyone's ulterior motives. Princess Elene screams, accusing her captor of having devoured her parents and planning to transform her into a monster to conquer the continent. A man vehemently denies the accusations, looking at the princess and assuring her that she will remain exactly as she is now. Visibly confused by the answer, Elene stares at him and asks what that unexpected promise truly means. Catal watches the situation unfold, remaining serious as the princess confronts her captors. Princess Elene confronts one of her captors with disdain, accusing him of merely spouting nonsense. With a firm and determined gaze, Elene remains unintimidated, maintaining her defiant stance in the face of the threat. Catal notices Princess Elene's distress and, with a serious gaze, directly questions her about what's wrong. With a tense expression, the princess responds with a challenge, asking if her terrible situation isn't obvious. Suddenly, a shocking vision of a dark, scaly transformation emerges, with Elene's eyes wide in panic. In a nightmare, Princess Elene sees herself mortally wounded, her eyes wide in pure terror before the shocking vision. She suddenly awakens, gasping and in a panic, realizing that the terrifying moment of her death was just a horrible dream. Still shaken, Elene looks around, the lingering fear of the nightmare etched on her face as she tries to understand what happened. Princess Elene is visibly shocked when confronted, as a cold voice notes her unexpected presence. And yet, here you are. Catal watches her in silence with a dark and imposing expression, letting the tension grow in the air between them. Completely shaken by Catal's intimidating presence, Princess Elene shrinks back and begins to tremble, unable to hide her fear. Nearby, Alessandro Tyrannus is caught off guard by the discussion and turns, alarmed by the sudden tension in the camp. Alessandro analyzes the group's priestess, concluding in thought that despite her apparent calm, she seems mentally shaken. Sitting near the campfire, he turns to Catal and directly questions him about when he truly realized the truth. Catal returns his gaze and responds with an enigmatic question, wanting to know if Alessandro suspected from the very beginning. Alessandro concentrates, but his eye of contemplation detects no energy, leading him to question if there's a resonance between beings of the abyss. Catal observes Alessandro, surprised by the attention he dedicated to the princess, questioning how closely he was watching her. Stared at by Catal, Alessandro reflects that the more he observes him, the harder it is to believe he is just a simple barbarian. Noticing Elene's presence, Catal confronts her outside the tent, asking why she doesn't reveal herself. Princess Elene becomes confused upon feeling a mysterious presence approaching without understanding what is happening in the forest. Catal appears with a confident smile, explaining to the princess that he managed to find her in the forest merely by instinct. Princess Elene is surprised to come face to face with one of Catal's companions in the forest, who stares at her in silence. A mage appears and introduces himself as Adamant Lagesh, the chief mage of the Luton Kingdom and a member of the School of the Polychromatic Orb. With a stern gaze, the wizard confronts the group, his tense expression indicating the serious conversation to follow. The attendant realizes Princess Elene has already been informed of the situation, noting the worried and nervous look on her face. With a serious gesture, the princess's attendant extends a hand, trying to stop Catal from advancing and causing a bigger problem. Distraught, Princess Elene warns that if they cross the border, it will become a diplomatic nightmare for everyone. With tear-filled eyes, Princess Elene shows her deep distress, unable to contain her emotions given the situation. With a firm gaze, the wizard introduces himself as Adamant Lagesh, the chief wizard of the Kingdom of Luton, reaffirming his identity. Princess Elene stares at the wizard, her expression of concern deepening at the revelation of his true identity. Princess Elene's attendant reveals they haven't changed, but merely become more perfect as she stares at him in the forest. Princess Elene's attendant arrives with firm steps, interrupting the scene to address her and Catal. Holding his staff, the attendant informs the princess it's time to return, for she belongs to the Kingdom of Luton. With a stern look, the attendant reinforces his order, making it clear to Elene there's no room for discussion about her return. Catal smiles at Princess Elene, offering to scare away the approaching man as he doesn't want her to leave. Elene's attendant orders Catal to step aside, stating the barbarian has no reason to interfere in their affairs. Indifferent, Catal stares at the man and scornfully questions his point, refusing to obey his order. The attendant stares at Princess Elene, who is shocked to hear that her true identity doesn't matter to the group. Emotional, Elene cries as she's reassured by the words that, to them, she is simply Elene. With her face bathed in tears, the princess looks up, deeply moved by the group's unconditional acceptance. Tears stream down Princess Elene's face. She appears utterly desolate by her situation. Catal's gaze remains fixed and calculating, observing the princess's distress without revealing any emotion. A confident smile appears on Catal's face, showing that the princess's resistance doesn't intimidate him in the least. A mysterious figure with a pointed hat emerges from the dark forest, their silent arrival foreshadowing important events. Princess Elene's attendant lets out a heavy sigh, the burden of his decision weighing on his weary expression. The attendant entrusts Princess Elene's safety to Patrick, firmly ordering him to look after her during the journey. Catal watches from a distance as Princess Elene and her attendant are guided through the forest, sensing danger approaching in the darkness. The guide stops walking and reveals himself as a white-bearded wizard, wielding his staff and emanating an aura of power. The mage floats in the air, conjuring blue flames and preparing to attack Catal, who stares back, ready for combat. Master Swordsman Cain stares at Catal, his gaze focused and gleaming with power, anticipating his opponent's move. Catal explodes into a swift attack, his purple aura enveloping the blow aimed at overwhelming the swordsman's defense. Catal looks at his bloodied fist, noticing the blood dissolving into particles of red energy. With a smile, Catal confirms his theory about his enemy's nature, thinking, exactly as I thought. The mage stares at Catal, shocked and thinking, he was so fast I couldn't even react. Catal concentrates his energy, and a purple aura explodes around him as he prepares to unleash his power. He looks back confidently, as if what he's about to do is trivial for him. With a single move, Catal shatters the very earth, carving a path through exploding rocks. With eyes gleaming in rage, Cain clenches his fist and channels his energy, preparing to deliver a full-force blow. His attack, manifested as a powerful wooden strike, shatters everything in its path with brutal, relentless force. The wooden branches close in, completely enveloping Catal's body, trapping and immobilizing him with a crushing grip. The Elder Elf, fury in his eyes, casts powerful fire magic, screaming for his target to turn to ashes. The Elder's spell hits its mark dead on, engulfing the wooden creature in a maelstrom of consuming flames. The Elder Elf unleashes his full fury in a devastating explosion, incinerating everything in its path with his power. Alessandro observes the mage repeatedly using high-cost spells, wondering if his mana regenerates somehow. As the old mage continues his assault, Alessandro concludes, shocked, that he's facing a sorcerer with infinite mana. With a gleaming eye, Alessandro realizes there's something more to the situation, pondering a but as he analyzes the enemy's power. Amidst an explosion of power, it becomes clear to Cain that he chose the wrong opponent to face in combat. With his face contorted in pure shock, Cain can barely believe the overwhelming display of force unfolding. Catal appears behind his opponent, who, terrified by the overwhelming presence, thinks, "This guy is an immeasurable monster." With a single blow, Catal utterly crushes his opponent, who explodes in a shower of blood and petals. Catal examines the blood on his hand, noticing something strange and thinking, this is... A mage watches the scene horrified, unable to process what he just witnessed, and screams, "What the hell are you?" Master Swordsman Cain glares at his opponent with fury, yelling at him to stop the pathetic jokes and fight seriously. The Elder Elf floats down from the heavens in an aura of power, making his dramatic entrance into the forest clearing. Surprised, Cain and his group are suddenly trapped within a hexagonal magic barrier, unable to escape the unknown spell. A mage conjures a tornado of energy, claiming his magic is so powerful it can even create natural disasters. The magical figure emerges amidst the power, admiring their own spell and deeming it truly impressive magic. Instead of retreating, Catal stomps firmly on the ground, unleashing an explosion of dark energy to counter the spell. A sphere of purple energy explodes with devastating force, tearing through the landscape with its raw, uncontrollable power. A hooded figure advances at high speed, channeling an immense amount of mana for the imminent attack. With a gaze of pure determination, the mage focuses all his will into the spell, preparing to annihilate his opponent. A hexagonal energy barrier repels the mages, throwing them back with overwhelming force as they try to protect themselves. An observer realizes, shocked, having felt no mystical energy, questioning if the overwhelming power came from a purely physical source. Catal advances with impossible speed, making the mage scream that such a display of power is absolutely impossible. One of the knights observes, horrified, the overwhelming energy emanating from his opponent, unable to believe what he sees. Catal channels his strength into a devastating punch, cracking the ground and unleashing a wave of pure, violet energy. The impact of the blow begins to disintegrate the knight's body, who stares at Catal with surprise in his final moment. Catal clenches his fist, realizing that normal methods will not be enough to win this battle. He then begins to channel a new and strange energy into his hand for his next attack. The energy manifests in his arm, showing that his preparation for the strike is complete. Unleashing a menacing red aura, the mage confronts Catal, asking what he thinks of his power. The mage observes Catal with a tense gaze, surprised by the barbarian's calm demeanor in the face of his imposing magic. With wide eyes, the mage is shocked to see his magic completely disintegrated by Catal's power. With eyes burning with fury, the mage glares at Catal, expressing all his hatred after the barbarian's provocation. Before Catal, the mage warns that, from that point on, the barbarian would also be risking his own life in battle. With a determined gaze, the mage channels his fury and unleashes powerful red energy, beginning his deadly attack. Amidst an explosion of red energy, a furious voice echoes, promising vengeance. "You will pay the price for this." After the battle, Catal leads Princess Elene and her companions down a forest road, taking a knight as a prisoner. The group walks in silence, Catal at the forefront, closely followed by the princess and her attendant, starting a new and uncertain journey. Upon reaching the gates of the Denian kingdom, the group prepares to go their separate ways, marking the end of their journey together. Alessandro explains to Catal that, as a foreign country, it's strange for him to enter, and their paths must diverge there. With a smile, Alessandro thanks Catal, confessing that the mere experience of traveling by his side was very pleasant and fruitful. Alessandro looks back with a smile before departing, going his own way after their farewell. Catal silently watches his companion walk away, reflecting on their separation and the future that awaits them. Arriving at the Denian kingdom's border, a furious guard stops them, yelling for the barbarian Catal to retreat immediately. Catal faces the guard with complete indifference, unfazed by the order, while Elene looks worried right behind him. Completely ignoring the order, Catal steps forward and, with intimidating calm, demands the guards open the gates. A royal guard announces he is there to see the king of Denian, Barbosa Denian, as the princess observes. Catal relaxes in a royal guest room, thinking he only achieved such comfort thanks to Elene's help. Upon receiving the mission complete notification, Catal reflects that, for now, he has managed to finish the task. The Elf Queen appears at the door, interrupting him to ask if he has a moment to talk. With a confident smile, Catal agrees and promptly invites the Elf Queen to sit and talk. Princess Elene waits with a somber expression, anxiously awaiting Catal's report after his important meeting. She stares at him and asks, "How was it?" understanding that if the answer is bad, everything will be irrevocably over. Catal faces Princess Elene with a serious and firm gaze, awaiting the decision she is about to make. With her eyes closed, Princess Elene feels the weight of responsibility for her people's future and ponders her choices. Finally, Elene opens her eyes, revealing a new and unwavering determination to face what lies ahead. Princess Elene confronts Catal, asking if he knows what has taken over her kingdom and what she has become. In response, Catal simply opens his hand and reveals a small crystalline object that shines intensely in his palm. Shocked by the sight of the crystal, Princess Elene stares at the item and asks, incredulously, what it is. Completely shocked, Princess Elene can barely believe what Catal offered her, questioning if she heard correctly. Elene examines the shining gem in her hand, thinking in wonder that she has never seen anything like it in her entire life. Catal reveals he forcibly compressed the fragments, explaining they are normally so small they are invisible to the naked eye. Princess Elene watches Catal with attention and curiosity as the barbarian prepares to explain a completely new concept to her. Catal reflects on the difficulty of explaining the microscopic world, doubting the concept exists in an era without the necessary technology. With a serious expression, Catal stares at the princess, waiting to see if his complex explanation was even minimally understood by her. With a determined gaze, a character considers the situation and thinks, in that case, preparing to act according to what has been presented. Princess Elene shrinks in her chair, visibly frightened and vulnerable as events unfold, feeling the weight of tension in the air. With wide eyes in shock and fear, Elene finally comprehends the gravity of her actions and prepares to apologize. Catal agrees with Princess Elene, admitting that the situation they discuss is not a pleasant thought for anyone. Concerned about the glowing particles on the table, Princess Elene questions Catal about the danger they pose. Catal smiles and begins to explain the particles' weakness, revealing they disintegrate with strong physical impact. Princess Elene listens with a somber expression, pondering the shocking implications of the conversation about life and salvation. Catal stares seriously at the princess as she questions him, arguing that, by her logic, she should also be incapable of understanding death. With arms crossed, Catal remains silent, reflecting on the dilemma presented by the princess. Catal approaches Princess Elene on her throne, questioning her directly and making her visibly nervous with his imposing presence. The next morning, Catal wakes in a luxurious castle room, showing he was granted accommodation after the encounter. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Catal appears to reflect on recent events and his new position within the castle walls. Catal rests casually in a luxurious room, but the sound of heavy footsteps announces the arrival of an unexpected visitor. The visitor reveals himself as Maximus, the Sword of Denian, an imposing warrior who enters the chamber with a solemn air. Without exchanging words, Catal rises and accompanies Maximus out of the room, following the warrior to an unknown destination. The captain of the guards casts a severe, suspicious look at Catal, making his hostility clear before they enter the throne room. Unfazed, Catal smiles and replies that he will remember the warning, displaying a confidence that seems to irritate the captain even more. Upon entering, they find Princess Elene before King Barbosa Denian, who observes her from his imposing golden throne. From his throne, King Barbosa Denian addresses the newcomer, questioning if he is the barbarian who escorted Princess Elene. Before royalty, Catal bows and formally introduces himself, confidently declaring, "I am Catal, the barbarian." Upon hearing the name, King Barbosa's eyes widen in shock, his tense expression revealing surprise at the man's identity. King Barbosa. Denian covers his mouth, unable to hide his nervousness and apprehension at the situation in his throne room. Catal stares at the throne as King Denian concludes his speech, declaring his contempt for the barbarians in his presence. Arms crossed, a noble beside the king reacts with surprise, loudly questioning the name Patrick. A noblewoman in court observes the scene with an expression of shock and concern, visibly shaken by the events. The Tower Master tenses as he is introduced, wondering why Catal is suddenly questioning him about Patrick's origins. Catal smiles reassuringly, saying it's all right and anyone can make a mistake, easing the Master's tension. With a relieved smile, the Tower Master thinks to himself that, fortunately, Catal was just testing the waters with his questions. A mysterious enemy reflects on the puppets he controls, realizing their differences go far beyond mere appearance. Princess Elene, visibly nervous, asks Catal about the outcome of the human declaration, fearing what he might reveal. Observing King Denian on his throne, Catal simply confirms their nature, declaring to himself, "They are human." Catal reveals to Princess Elene that the captured knight and the others were human, causing her to react with an expression of sadness and guilt. Catal observes Elene, reflecting that, although she called herself a monster, her true desire was to remain human until the end. King Barbossa. Denian observes the conversation with a serious and penetrating gaze, processing the grave implications of that revelation. Amidst the court's tension, a blonde-haired noblewoman lowers her gaze, visibly concerned by the gravity of the situation. A man in red robes warns that the current protection is temporary and that, at this rate, the entire continent will be replaced. With a serious look, King Denian addresses the man, saying he's heard that he knows a way to get rid of the threat. In the imposing throne room, Catal presents himself before King Barbossa Denian, facing him with a serious and resolute expression.